The black SUV slammed through Ethan Cole's garage fence at 90 miles per hour, glass exploding across snow-covered asphalt like diamonds under floodlights. A woman stumbled out, bleeding from her temple, designer suit torn, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. "They're 2 minutes behind me, maybe less." Ethan wiped grease from his hands and looked toward the darkness beyond his property line. He'd spent 5 years building this quiet life. 5 years hiding from the violence that used to define him. But tonight, the past wasn't asking permission to come back. It was already here. Before we begin, please like this video and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The metal sign outside read Cole's Garage, honest work, fair prices, in faded letters that hadn't been repainted since Ethan bought the place. It wasn't much. A single-bay garage on the edge of Carver Falls, Colorado, population 1,847, where the biggest excitement most weeks was arguing about plow schedules at the town council meetings. Ethan preferred it that way. He was under a '98 Chevy when his phone buzzed. Sophie's name lit up the screen. "Dad, Mrs. Chen says the snow's getting bad. Can you pick me up early?" Ethan rolled out from under the truck, his back protesting the concrete floor. 32 wasn't supposed to feel like 60. But some injuries never really healed. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, sweetheart. Pack up your stuff." "Already did. Love you." "Love you too." He hung up and glanced at the clock. 6:47 p.m. The blizzard forecast had been calling for heavy snow since yesterday, but Colorado weather was like that. Threaten apocalypse. Deliver 6 inches and some wind. Still, he'd promised Sophie's teacher he'd get there before the roads got dangerous. Ethan grabbed his coat from the hook near the office. The garage was warm from the space heater in the corner, country music playing softly from the radio. This was his world now. Oil changes, brake jobs, the occasional transmission rebuild. Simple work, honest work. Nothing that required thinking about the man he used to be. He was reaching for the light switch when he heard it. The sound was distant at first, muffled by falling snow and the wind rattling the garage door. But Ethan's ears had been trained to recognize certain things, and high-performance engines pushing past their limits was one of them. He paused, hand still on the switch, listening. The engine sound grew louder, closer. Too fast for these roads in this weather. Then came the crash. The impact shook the building's frame. Metal screamed against metal, glass shattered, and something heavy slammed into the chain-link fence surrounding his property. Ethan's body moved before his mind caught up, muscle memory from another life taking over. He grabbed the tire iron from the workbench and moved toward the garage door. Through the small window, he could see it. A black Cadillac Escalade, front end crumpled, steam rising from the hood. The vehicle had torn through 30 feet of fence and come to rest sideways across his parking lot. Ethan hit the button. The garage door rolled up with its usual grinding noise, and cold air rushed in, carrying snow and the smell of burning rubber. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair pulled back in what had probably been a professional bun before the crash turned it into a mess of loose strands. Blood ran from a cut above her left eyebrow, but her eyes were sharp, focused, scanning the darkness beyond the property line. She wore a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than Ethan made in a month, now torn at the shoulder and spotted with blood. She saw him and stopped. "Are you the owner?" Her voice was steady. Too steady for someone who'd just crashed through a fence at highway speeds. "That's me? You hurt?" "Not badly." She glanced over her shoulder again, toward the road. "But I need help, now." Ethan stepped out into the snow. "I can call an ambulance." "No." The word came fast, sharp. "No police, no ambulance, no calls." That was when Ethan saw her hands. They weren't shaking. Not from cold, not from shock, not from whatever adrenaline dump should have been flooding her system after that crash. This woman was scared, but she wasn't panicking. She was calculating. "Ma'am, you just put an SUV through my fence. I'm going to need some kind of explanation before—" "They're coming." She took a step toward him, and now he could see the fear behind those sharp eyes. "The people who did this to me, they're maybe 2 minutes behind, maybe less." Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear. Something older than that. Something he'd tried very hard to forget. "Who's coming?" Men with guns. Trained men. and they won't stop when they see you standing here. They'll kill you, burn this place down, and disappear before anyone even knows to ask questions." She looked directly at him. "So either let me borrow your phone so I can run, or get inside and lock your doors." Ethan studied her face. The blood, the torn suit, the way she kept checking the road. This woman was running from something real, something dangerous. Every instinct he'd developed over 5 years of quiet life screamed at him to call the sheriff and let the system handle it. But he'd been in the system once. He knew exactly how that could end. "What's your name? Does it matter?" "If people are about to shoot up my garage, yeah, it matters." She hesitated, then, "Vanessa. Vanessa Hale." The name hit him like a punch. Vanessa Hale, CEO of Hale Defense Technologies. He'd seen her on the news a few times, usually standing at podiums talking about defense contracts and innovation. Forbes had called her one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America. What the hell was she doing crashing through his fence in rural Colorado? "You're serious," he said, "about the guns." "Dead serious." Ethan looked past her toward the road. Headlights. Still distant, but moving fast. 2 vehicles, maybe 3. Coming from the same direction she had. He made his decision. Inside, now. Vanessa didn't argue. She moved quickly toward the garage, favoring her right leg slightly. Ethan followed, his mind already working through possibilities, angles, problems. He hit the button and the garage door rolled down, cutting off the view of the road. "How many?" he asked. "6 that I saw. Maybe more." "Professionals?" She looked at him sharply. "How do you know to ask that?" "Lucky guess." "Armed?" "Yes." "Bulletproof glass on that Escalade?" "Factory military grade. They shot through it anyway." Ethan walked to the workbench and pulled open a drawer. Inside was a Glock 19, old, well-maintained, chambered in 9mm. He checked the magazine, 15 rounds, and chambered a round. Vanessa's eyes went wide. "You keep a gun in your garage?" "Colorado. Everyone keeps a gun somewhere." He grabbed a second magazine from the drawer and shoved it in his pocket. "But I'm guessing 15 rounds won't mean much against 6 professionals." "It won't." "Then we've got a problem." Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. Ethan moved to the window and looked out carefully. 2 black SUVs, same model as Vanessa's, pulling into his lot. They stopped at angles, blocking the exit. Doors opened. Men stepped out. They moved like soldiers, coordinated. Weapons held low but ready. Tactical gear under civilian clothes. No hesitation in their movements. Ethan counted, 6 men total, all armed with what looked like HK-416 rifles. Military-grade hardware. These weren't local thugs or hired muscle. These were operators. "Stay behind the truck," he told Vanessa. "What are you going to do?" "Buy time." He moved to the side door that led to the small office attached to the garage. Through the window, he could see one of the men approaching, tall, buzz-cut, moving with the kind of confidence that came from knowing you had overwhelming force on your side. The man didn't knock. He tried the handle, found it locked, and took a step back. "Ethan Cole," the man called through the door. "We know she's in there. Send her out and this end's clean. Nobody else has to get hurt." Ethan stayed silent. "I'm going to count to 10, the man continued. "If that door isn't open by then, we're coming in. You're a civilian. You don't want to be in the middle of this." Ethan looked back at Vanessa. She'd pressed herself against the side of the truck, blood still running down her face. In the harsh fluorescent light of the garage, she looked younger than 30. Scared, trying very hard not to show it. "Who are these people?" he asked quietly. "Private contractors. Working for someone inside the government." "Why do they want you?" "Because I built something they want, something worth killing for." "What did you build?" "An AI system, military-grade decision architecture. It's worth—" She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter what it's worth. What matters is they can't have it." Outside, the man had reached 7. Ethan looked at the Glock in his hand. 15 rounds. 6 men. Military training. This was going to go bad fast. 8. He thought about Sophie, waiting at Mrs. Chen's house, wondering why her dad was late. He thought about the quiet life he'd built here. The ordinary, safe, boring life that was supposed to keep them both away from exactly this kind of situation. 9. But some things you couldn't run from forever. 10. The door exploded inward. Ethan was already moving. He'd been tracking the man's position through the frosted glass, and the moment the door burst open, he fired twice. Center mass. The man went down hard. Tactical vest stopping the rounds, but the impact enough to put him on his back. Ethan didn't stop. He pivoted left as return fire tore through the office, punching holes in the cheap drywall. He fired 3 more rounds through the doorway, forcing the others back, buying seconds. "How many exits?" Vanessa shouted over the gunfire. 2. They're covering both. Windows? Same problem. Another burst of fire chewed through the office wall. Ethan dropped low, moved back into the garage proper. His mind was working through options. Training he hadn't used in 5 years suddenly sharp and clear again. The garage was a single large room with the office attached. 1 vehicle lift. Workbenches along 2 walls. Tools. Parts. A small bathroom in the back corner. Not much in the way of cover. The truck might stop pistol rounds, but not rifle fire. He needed to change the equation. "The lights," he said to Vanessa. "Kill the lights." She understood immediately, scrambling to the wall switch. The fluorescent overhead went dark, plunging the garage into shadow, broken only by the dim glow from the office's security light. Through the broken door, Ethan could hear them communicating. Professional radio discipline, coordinates, angles. These men knew what they were doing. He moved to the workbench and grabbed a half-empty propane tank from a welding kit. Small, portable. Maybe 5 pounds of fuel. "Stay down," he told Vanessa. He twisted the valve open, letting gas hiss into the air, then hurled the tank through the office doorway. It clanged against something metal, bounced, came to rest somewhere near the exterior door. 5 seconds. He counted them in his head while rifle muzzles appeared in the doorway, sweeping the dark garage. 4 seconds. 3. At 2 seconds, he fired a single round into the office. The explosion wasn't huge. Propane didn't work like gasoline in the movies, but it was enough. Flames erupted in the office, and the men at the door fell back, shouting. One of them was on fire, rolling in the snow. Ethan used the chaos. He moved to the main garage door and hit the button. The door began to rise with its agonizing mechanical slowness, revealing the parking lot and the 2 SUVs. A man appeared in the widening gap, rifle coming up. Ethan fired first, 3 rounds. The man went down. "Car!" Vanessa was pointing to an old Ford pickup parked near the back wall. The keys? In the ignition. She ran for it while Ethan put 3 more rounds toward the office, keeping heads down. His magazine was empty. He dropped it, slapped in the spare, chambered around. 15 more shots. That was all he had. The truck's engine roared to life. "Go!" Ethan sprinted for the passenger side, diving in as Vanessa threw the transmission into reverse. Tires screamed against concrete. The truck shot backward out of the garage into the snow. Gunfire erupted immediately. The rear window exploded. Bullets punched through the door panels. Vanessa didn't slow down. She spun the wheel hard, whipping the truck around in a spray of snow and gravel, then slammed it into drive. They rocketed forward toward the road, the old engine protesting but responding. More gunfire chased them. One of the SUVs was starting to move, coming after them. "They're faster than us," Vanessa said. "I know. We can't outrun them. I know." "Then what's the plan?" Ethan looked at the dark road ahead. Snow falling heavy now, visibility maybe 50 feet. He thought about Sophie, about the quiet life, about all the reasons he'd promised himself he would never do this again. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Sheriff's office. Deputy Chen, this is Ethan Cole. I need you to send every unit you have to my garage, right now." "Ethan, what's—" "Armed men. Multiple shooters. Officer needs assistance. Do it now." He hung up before she could ask questions. Vanessa stared at him. "I said no police." "You said no calls." "I didn't call the police. I called the sheriff. Different thing." "That's the same thing." Not in Colorado." He checked the side mirror. The SUV was gaining, its more powerful engine eating up the distance. "How long before your people realize you're not dead?" "I don't have people. I'm alone on this." "Billionaire CEO doesn't have security?" "My head of security is who sold me out." She took a corner too fast, the truck fishtailing before finding traction. I found the proof yesterday. By the time I realized how deep this went, they were already coming for me. The pursuing SUV was 50 yards back. 40. Its headlights filled the cab. The AI system you built? Ethan said. Does it work? Yes. Is it worth dying for? Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. I don't want to die, but I'm not giving it to them either. 30 yards, 25. Ethan made another decision he knew he'd probably regret. Turn around. What? Turn the truck around. We're going back. Are you insane? Probably. Turn around. Vanessa hesitated for only a second, then yanked the wheel hard. The truck spun, tires losing grip, sliding sideways through the snow. For a moment they were perpendicular to the road, completely exposed. Then the tires caught, and they were accelerating back the way they'd come, straight toward the pursuing SUV. The two vehicles rushed toward each other like medieval knights in a joust. 60 miles per hour closing speed, 40 yards. 30. Whatever you're thinking, Vanessa said tightly, now would be a good time. 20 yards. Ethan aimed through the shattered rear window and fired. Not at the SUV, he knew better than to waste ammunition on armored glass. He aimed at the road surface, right in front of the vehicle. The bullet sparked off asphalt. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make the driver flinch, to jerk the wheel instinctively away from incoming fire. The SUV swerved right, its wheels hit the soft shoulder. At that speed, in that snow, there was no recovering. The vehicle went sideways, then rolled, metal shrieking as it tumbled through the ditch. Vanessa rocketed past the wreck without slowing. My garage, Ethan said. Head back there. You want to go back to where they know we are? They think we're running. Let them chase ghosts for a while. We need time to think. They reached the garage 3 minutes later. The office was still smoldering. The man Ethan had shot was gone, either helped away by his team or tough enough to walk on his own. No sign of the others. Vanessa pulled the truck inside and Ethan hit the door button. It rolled down, sealing them in. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, replaced by the shaky aftermath that always followed violence. Ethan's hands weren't quite steady as he ejected the magazine and checked the rounds. 8 left. You're not a mechanic, Vanessa said quietly. I am now. But you weren't always. Ethan didn't answer. He moved to the bathroom, grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, and brought it back to where Vanessa was leaning against the truck. Let me see that cut. She didn't argue. Up close, he could see it wasn't as bad as all the blood made it look. Scalp wounds always bled like hell, but it would need stitches. I can butterfly it for now, he said, opening the kit. But you'll want a real doctor to look at it. Can't risk a hospital. I know. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic, and Vanessa hissed but didn't pull away. You knew they were coming for you. You were ready to run. I have eyes inside the organization. Someone I trust warned me they were moving tonight, but not enough warning to get proper help. No. Ethan applied the butterfly bandages carefully, pulling the edges of the cut together. His hands were steadier now, falling into the familiar rhythm of field medicine. How'd you end up at my garage? Random. I was just looking for somewhere to stop, somewhere remote. She paused. Bad luck for you. Maybe. He finished with the bandage and stepped back. Or maybe not. What does that mean? Before he could answer, his phone rang. The display said Mrs. Chen. Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd forgotten. Sophie. He answered, Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry. Ethan, there are men here. His blood turned to ice. What? Men in suits. They showed up 20 minutes ago asking about Sophie, asking if anyone had seen you. I told them no, but Ethan, they're not leaving. They're just sitting in their car outside my house, watching. Ethan looked at Vanessa. She'd gone pale. Mrs. Chen, listen to me very carefully. Take Sophie to your basement. Lock the door. Do not come out until I get there. Do you understand? Ethan, what's happening? Please, just do what I'm asking. Okay, we're going now. What? She hung up. The rage that filled Ethan's chest was old and familiar. He'd spent 5 years trying to bury it. 5 years building a life where his daughter would never have to see what he was capable of. But they'd gone to her school. They'd put men outside her teacher's house. They'd threatened Sophie. "I'm sorry," Vanessa said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry, eh?" Ethan set the phone down carefully. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Too calm. "These people you're running from, the ones who want your technology, they have a command structure?" "Yes." "Someone at the top? Someone making the calls?" "Yes, a man named Victor Kane. I know who Victor Kane is." Ethan walked to the workbench and started pulling open drawers. "He runs covert operations for the Defense Intelligence Agency. Black budget. No oversight. He's been doing it for 15 years. "How do you know that?" Ethan found what he was looking for. A small thumb drive taped to the underside of the bottom drawer. He pulled it free and held it up. "Because 5 years ago, I used to work for him." The silence that followed was absolute. Vanessa stared at him. "What?" "My name wasn't always Ethan Cole. Well, the Ethan part was real. But I had a different last name. A different life." He turned the thumb drive over in his fingers. "I was part of Kane's unit, covert operations, things that officially never happened." "You're lying. You crashed through my fence with military contractors shooting at you, and I killed 3 of them without breaking a sweat. Do I seem like I'm lying?" Vanessa's eyes went wider. "The extraction mission. Syria, 5 years ago. You remember it. They told me it was a kidnapping. Extremists. They said a team went in and got me out before..." She stopped. Understanding dawned across her face. "It wasn't extremists." "No. It was Kane's people. He wanted your research. Already wanted it back then, before you even built the full system. He was going to grab you, force you to work for him off book, build him weapons nobody could track." Ethan's voice was flat, emotionless. "I was supposed to be part of the team that delivered you to him. But you didn't." "No. I got you out instead. Burned my whole team to do it. Then I disappeared before Kane could finish the cleanup. Changed my name, moved to the middle of nowhere, opened a garage." He looked at her. "I spent 5 years hoping he'd forgotten about me, that I could just be a mechanic and raise my daughter in peace. But he didn't forget. Kane never forgets." Vanessa's hands were shaking now. "So this was never random. Me crashing here. This is..." "No." Ethan cut her off. "This part was random. Kane doesn't know I'm here. If he did, we'd both already be dead. You running into my garage was just bad luck. But now he's about to find out." Ethan pocketed the thumb drive. "Because I'm going to make sure he does." "Why?" "Because he sent men to my daughter's school. The rage was still there, controlled but absolute. Because he threatened the one thing in this world I will burn everything down to protect." Outside, sirens were approaching. Ethan had bought them maybe 10 minutes before the sheriff's deputies arrived, and this became even more complicated. "That thumb drive," Vanessa said. "What's on it?" "Insurance. Everything I collected during my time with Kane. Names, dates, operations, bank accounts. Proof of every law he's broken for the last 15 years. Ethan looked at her. "I kept it hidden in case he ever came for me. Mutually assured destruction." "Will it stop him?" If I can get it to the right people, maybe. But Kane spent years building relationships with those exact people. He's got protection at every level." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Which means we need leverage. Something he can't afford to lose." "Like what?" "Like you. Like your AI system. Like proof that he's running an illegal operation to steal military technology from American citizens." Ethan pulled out his phone again. "You said someone inside your organization warned you. Someone you trust. Can you contact them?" "Yes. My CTO, Rebecca Park. She's the only one who knows the full truth about what I built." "Maiski Boki Kuwasan." "Call her. Tell her to grab every piece of evidence she has about Kane's operation and bring it to..." He stopped. The sirens were getting very close now. Tell her to bring it to county lockup. We're about to be arrested. What? It's the only play we have. Right now, Kane's contractors are out there looking for us. They have mobility, resources, numbers. But they can't walk into a sheriff's station and start shooting deputies. Not without causing the kind of attention that even Kane can't cover up. Ethan moved toward the garage door. We let the sheriff take us in. We make it loud, official, impossible to disappear quietly. Then we use the time to build a case Kane can't suppress. And your daughter? The question hung in the air. I'm going to call in a favor, someone who can get her somewhere safe while this plays out. His expression hardened. And if Kane has already touched her, then the thumb drive won't matter anymore. I'll kill him myself. The sirens were right outside now. Flashing lights painted the garage walls red and blue through the windows. Vanessa watched him carefully. You're serious about all of it? Every word. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. You could hand me over to Kane, take whatever deal he offers. Protect your daughter that way. Ethan looked at her. In the harsh light, covered in blood, scared but refusing to break, she reminded him of every reason he'd walked away from Kane's world in the first place. Because 5 years ago, I decided some things were worth risking everything for, worth being more than just another soldier following orders. He picked up the Glock and set it on the workbench where the deputies would see it immediately. Cooperation. Tonight, you're asking me to make that choice again, to step up when it matters. And I've got an 8-year-old daughter who's going to grow up in the world we leave behind. I want her growing up in one where people like Kane don't win. The garage door shook as someone pounded on it. Sheriff's Department, open up! Ethan moved to the control button. Last chance to run. Vanessa straightened, wiping blood from her face, pulling together the shattered remains of her billionaire CEO composure. I didn't come this far to run now, sheet. Bum. All right then. Ethan hit the button. The door began to rise. Let's go remind them why they should have left us alone. The door rolled up to reveal 6 sheriff's deputies, weapons drawn, faces tight with tension. Behind them, more vehicles were arriving. EMTs, state police, the whole circus. Deputy Chen stood at the front and her eyes went wide when she saw Ethan. Jesus Christ, Ethan, what the hell happened here? Ethan raised his hand slowly. It's a long story, Rachel, but the short version is you've got a billionaire CEO in protective custody and about 30 federal crimes to sort through. He glanced at Vanessa. Also, I need you to send a unit to Mrs. Chen's house right now. There are armed men watching it. Armed men? Ethan, what? Right now, Rachel. My daughter's there. That got her moving. She barked orders into her radio while 2 deputies moved forward to secure the scene. They cleared Ethan and Vanessa, then guided them toward separate patrol cars with the practiced efficiency of small-town cops, who didn't see this kind of excitement often, but trained for it anyway. As they separated Vanessa from him, she looked back once. Her eyes met his across the parking lot, and he saw the question there. Are we really doing this? Ethan gave the smallest nod. Then they were in the cars, doors closing, and the long night was just beginning. The patrol car pulled away from the garage, and through the rear window, Ethan watched his quiet life disappear into the snow and flashing lights. 5 years of peace, of normalcy, of pretending the past didn't exist. It had been a good 5 years, but they were over now. The holding cell at the Carver Falls Sheriff's Station smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. Ethan sat on the metal bench, hands cuffed in front of him, watching the second hand tick around the wall clock. 11:43 p.m. Sophie would be terrified by now. Mrs. Chen was good people, but she wasn't equipped to explain why armed men were watching her house or why Sophie's father hadn't shown up to take her home. The door opened. Deputy Rachel Chen walked in carrying 2 styrofoam cups of coffee. She set one down in front of him and kept the other, leaning against the wall with the exhausted posture of someone who'd been on shift for 14 hours and counting. Your daughter's safe, she said without preamble. State police pulled up to my mother's house and the men watching it scattered. Mom's keeping Sophie in the basement like you asked. She's scared, but she's okay. The relief hit Ethan hard enough that he had to close his eyes for a second. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I've got the FBI, ATF, and about 3 different federal agencies calling my sheriff demanding to know what the hell happened at your garage tonight. Rachel took a sip of coffee and grimaced. Also, your billionaire friend lawyered up about 30 seconds after we brought her in. Got some hotshot attorney on video call from New York threatening to sue us for unlawful detention. She say anything useful? Nothing. Just that she was driving through town when armed men started shooting at her. She crashed. You helped, and that's all she knows. Rachel's eyes narrowed. But you're going to tell me more than that, aren't you? How much do you want to know? All of it, starting with who those men were and why they had military-grade weapons at your garage. Ethan picked up the coffee. It was terrible, but it was hot. You know I was Army before I moved here. Everyone knows that. You don't talk about it, but it's not a secret. What nobody knows is what I did in the Army, or who I worked for afterward. He met her eyes. I was part of a classified unit, covert operations, the kind that don't officially exist. Rachel's expression didn't change, but her posture shifted slightly, more alert. Go on. 5 years ago, I walked away from that life. Changed my name, bought the garage, raised my daughter. I thought I'd buried it deep enough that it would never find me. He paused. I was wrong. And Vanessa Hale? She's got something people want. Technology, the kind worth killing for. And the man coordinating the people who came after her tonight is the same man I used to work for. You're telling me this is some kind of black ops conspiracy. I'm telling you that the men who shot up my garage tonight aren't going to stop. They're going to regroup, get new orders, and come back with a bigger hammer. And when they do, it won't matter that Vanessa and I are in custody. They'll burn this building down if they have to. Rachel stared at him for a long moment. You're serious? Dead serious. Then we need to move you both to county lockup. Better security, more resources. No, we stay here. Ethan, I've got 12 deputies total. If what you're saying is true, it is true. But county's too big, too many points of entry, too many people who might be compromised. Here, you've got sight lines. You know every face that walks through that door. Ethan leaned forward. And here, they can't move against us without making noise. The kind of noise that draws attention they don't want. Rachel rubbed her temples. My sheriff is going to lose his mind. Better than losing his deputies. Trust me, Rachel. I know how these people operate. She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched out while she weighed her options, and Ethan could see the moment she made her decision. Fine, but you're going to tell me everything. Names, dates, whatever evidence you have. Because if federal agents show up here with badges and warrants, I need to know whether to cooperate or call my union rep. Fair enough. Ethan pulled the thumb drive from his pocket and set it on the table between them. Everything's on here, operations logs, financial records, communication intercepts. 5 years of evidence that Victor Kane and his unit have been running illegal operations under the cover of national security. Rachel picked up the drive carefully, like it might explode. Picked up. And this is admissible? Some of it. Enough to start an investigation that can't be buried quietly. He paused. But only if it gets into the right hands. Kane's got friends in every agency that matters. We need someone outside his reach. Who? I'm working on that. The door opened again and Sheriff Tom Reeves walked in. He was 60 years old, gray-haired, with the kind of weathered face that came from 40 years of dealing with the worst people in 3 counties. He looked at Ethan, then at Rachel, then at the thumb drive on the table. Someone want to tell me why the FBI just called demanding we release Ms. Hale into their custody immediately? Rachel straightened. What did you tell them? I told them we're processing a crime scene and she's a material witness. That bought us maybe 3 hours before they show up with federal marshals. He pointed at Ethan. You're the mechanic who never talks about his past. Now I've got dead bodies at your garage and feds crawling up my ass. Start explaining. So Ethan did. He gave Reeves the abbreviated version. His time in Kane's unit, the mission 5 years ago, the thumb drive, Vanessa's technology, and why armed contractors had tried to kill her tonight. He left out some details, but the core truth was there. Reeves listened without interrupting. When Ethan finished, the sheriff pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. Son of a bitch, he said quietly. Yeah. You're telling me we're sitting in the middle of a federal clusterfuck. pretty much. And the woman in my other holding cell is a billionaire who built some kind of military AI. Yes, sir. And the people who want her dead are connected to U.S. intelligence. Connected to one man in U.S. intelligence, Victor Kane. Everyone else is just following orders without knowing the full picture. Reeves looked at the thumb drive. That thing really has evidence? Enough to end Kane's career and probably put him in federal prison. Then why hasn't anyone stopped him before now? Because nobody had proof. Kane's been smart. He operates in the shadows, uses cutouts, burns anyone who gets too close to the truth. Ethan's voice hardened. But he made a mistake tonight. He sent people after Vanessa in the United States on American soil using military contractors. That's harder to hide than operations overseas. Unless he kills everyone who knows about it, Rachel said quietly. That's the plan. Yeah. Reeves stood up and paced to the window. Outside, the snow was still falling, covering everything in clean white silence. FBI will be here by morning. When they arrive, they'll take Ms. Hale and probably you too. Once you're in their custody, Kane can make you both disappear. I know. So what's your play? We need to get this information to someone Kane can't touch. Someone with enough authority to launch an investigation he can't suppress. Ethan looked at Rachel. You said Vanessa's lawyer is on video call? Yeah, some Manhattan firm. Why? Because she didn't just call any lawyer. She called someone she trusts. Someone outside Kane's reach. He stood up. I need to talk to her. Reeves and Rachel exchanged glances. Ethan, Reeves said slowly, you're technically under arrest for what? Defending myself? Helping a woman who was being attacked? Ethan shook his head. You and I both know you're not charging me with anything. You're holding me in protective custody while you figure out what the hell to do, which means I can waive my right to separate detention and request to speak with Ms. Hale. It's all legal. Reeves sighed. Rachel, go get Ms. Hale. Bring her to interview room 2. And someone get these cuffs off Mr. Cole. 3 minutes later, Ethan sat across a metal table from Vanessa Hale. She'd cleaned the blood off her face, and someone had given her a sheriff's department sweatshirt to replace her torn suit jacket. The butterfly bandages on her forehead were already starting to peel at the edges. She looked exhausted and wired at the same time, running on adrenaline and fear. Your lawyer still on the line? Ethan asked. Yes, Rebecca made some calls, got me representation fast. Rebecca Park, your CTO, was. You remember? I remember everything you told me tonight. He leaned forward. Did she find the evidence? The proof about Kane's operation? Vanessa nodded slowly. She's been digging for weeks. Ever since I found out my head of security was feeding information to someone outside the company. She's got communications, financial transfers, meeting logs. Everything that proves Kane's been trying to acquire my technology through illegal channels. Where is she now? Safe house, Manhattan, with copies of everything stored in 3 separate locations. Vanessa's eyes were sharp despite the exhaustion. But that doesn't help us if we're dead before we can use it. We're not going to die. You sound very confident for someone sitting in a holding cell. I've been in worse situations. What? Have you? There was an edge to her voice now. Because from where I'm sitting, we've got maybe hours before federal agents show up and hand us over to the same people who tried to kill me tonight. That's not going to happen. Why not? Because I spent 5 years preparing for the possibility that Kane would find me. I've got contingencies, people who owe me favors, ways to get information to the right places, even if I'm not around to deliver it myself. He paused. But there's something I need from you first. What? The truth about what you built. Not the corporate press release version, the real version. Vanessa studied his face for a moment, then made a decision. It's called Aegis, Autonomous Executive Guardian Intelligence System. On paper, it's a military decision support platform, processes tactical data, runs simulations, helps commanders make faster decisions in combat situations. And off paper, it's the most advanced artificial intelligence system ever built for military applications. It doesn't just support decisions, it makes them. It can coordinate drone strikes, manage battlefield logistics, even predict enemy movements with 93% accuracy. She looked down at her hands. In the wrong hands, Aegis could wage war without human oversight. No checks, no balances, just pure algorithmic efficiency. Jesus. The Defense Department commissioned it 3 years ago, paid for the research, the development, everything. But I built in safeguards, kill switches, ways to shut it down if it ever started operating outside ethical parameters. Her voice got quieter. Kane found out about those safeguards 6 months ago. He wanted me to remove them, said they compromised operational effectiveness. And you refused. Of course I refused. Aegis without safeguards isn't a defense system. It's a weapon of mass destruction. She met his eyes. That's when Kane started planning to take control. If I won't remove the safeguards willingly, he'll take the system and do it himself. Can he, without you? Eventually, with enough time and the right people, yes. But it would take months, maybe years, and there'd be gaps in the code, vulnerabilities he wouldn't know about. She leaned forward. That's why he wants me alive. He needs me to make it work properly. Once he has what he needs, he kills you. Yes. The silence that followed was heavy. This system, Ethan said finally. Aegis, where is it now? Distributed across 17 secure servers, military-grade encryption, air-gapped from public networks. Vanessa's expression was grim. But Kane has people inside the Defense Department. If he gets authorization to access those servers under the guise of a security review or emergency protocol, he could copy everything before anyone realizes what's happening. So we need to stop him before he gets that authorization. That's what I've been trying to do for 6 months, but he's too well connected. Every time I tried to raise concerns through official channels, I got stonewalled. Every report I filed got buried. Every meeting I requested got canceled. Frustration bled through her voice. He's built a wall around himself using bureaucracy and classified operations. The normal systems don't work. Then we use abnormal systems. Like what? Ethan pulled out his phone. Like going to the one person in government Kane has never been able to completely control. Someone with enough independence and authority to launch an investigation regardless of who tries to stop it. He dialed a number he hadn't called in 5 years. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. This is Harmon. Senator, this is Ethan Cole. We worked together on the Kazakhstan operation in 2020. There was a pause. Phantom. Not anymore. I'm just Ethan now. I heard you disappeared. Rumor was Kane burned you. He tried. I survived. Ethan glanced at Vanessa. Senator, I need your help. There's a situation developing that requires immediate attention from someone outside the intelligence community's normal chain of command. How immediate? Hours? Maybe less. Another pause. Longer this time. Senator James Harmon had spent 20 years on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He'd seen every classified briefing, read every black budget report, and developed a reputation for being impossible to fool or intimidate. If anyone could stand up to Kane's network, it was him. Tell me what you need, Harmon said. Ethan spent the next 5 minutes laying it out. Vanessa's technology, Kane's operation, the attack tonight, the evidence on the thumb drive. He didn't hold back. If they were going to survive this, they needed Harmon to understand exactly how deep the corruption went. When he finished, Harmon was quiet for a moment. You're telling me Victor Kane is running an unsanctioned operation to steal military AI technology from a private contractor? Yes, using Defense Intelligence Agency resources and personnel? Yes. And you have evidence. Enough to prove intent and coordination. Maybe not enough for criminal prosecution, but enough to trigger an investigation. Kane will claim national security, say he was protecting critical technology from foreign espionage. He can claim whatever he wants, but when you start pulling threads, you'll find financial irregularities, unauthorized operations, and dead civilians. That's harder to justify under national security. Harmon made a sound that might have been approval. Where are you now? Carver Falls Sheriff's Station, Colorado, in protective custody with Ms. Hale. FBI's been calling everyone in Washington demanding her release. I know, that's Kane's play. Get her into federal custody where he can control what happens next. Can you hold out until morning? Maybe. Depends how hard Kane pushes. I'll make some calls. Get the Intelligence Committee staff working on subpoenas. Once we have official oversight inquiries filed, it becomes much harder for Kane to move against you without triggering scrutiny. Harmon's voice hardened. But Ethan, understand something. If you're wrong about this, if Kane's operation is legitimate and you're interfering with sanctioned activity, I can't protect you. I'm not wrong. Good. Then stay alive until I can get resources to your position. He hung up. Ethan set the phone down and looked at Vanessa. That bought us maybe 6 hours. Harmon's good, but Kane's network runs deep. The moment he hears the Intelligence Committee is asking questions, he'll know we reached out. So what do? We prepare for the worst. The door opened and Sheriff Reeves stepped in. Mr. Cole, there's someone here to see you. Who? Your daughter. Everything stopped. Ethan was on his feet before he consciously decided to move. She's supposed to be at Mrs. Chen's house. She is, but she's on the phone, demanding to talk to her father. Reeves's expression was gentle. She's scared, Ethan. She needs to hear your voice. They led him to a phone at the front desk. His hands were shaking as he picked it up. Sophie? Daddy? Her voice was small and terrified. Mrs. Chen said you got arrested. She said there were bad men and you had to go away and... Sophie, sweetheart, I need you to listen to me. I'm okay. I'm not arrested. I'm just helping the police with something. But the men are gone. The state police chased them away. You're safe at Mrs. Chen's house, and I'm going to come get you as soon as I can. When? It was the question he didn't have an answer for. When could he go get her? When would it be safe? When would Kane's people stop hunting them? Soon, baby. Very soon. You promise? The lie came easier than it should have. I promise. I'm scared. I know. But Mrs. Chen is keeping you safe, and I'm working with good people to make sure everything's okay. Can you be brave for me? I guess. That's my girl. Now I need you to do something for me. Can you put Mrs. Chen back on? Okay. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Sophie. More than anything. There was rustling, then Mrs. Chen's voice. Ethan. Keep her in the basement. Don't let her leave for any reason. If anyone comes to the door claiming to be police or FBI or anything else, you verify through Rachel first. Understand? Yes. But Ethan, how long? I don't know, but I'm going to fix this. He gripped the phone tighter. I'm going to fix this, and then I'm coming for her. He hung up before she could respond. When he turned around, Vanessa was standing there. She'd heard everything. I'm sorry, she said again. Don't. This isn't your fault. It is. If I hadn't crashed into your garage, then Kane's people would have killed you and taken your technology. And in 6 months or a year, Aegis would be operating without safeguards, and I'd be reading about drone strikes in the news without knowing I could have stopped it. He shook his head. No. We're in this now, both of us. Rachel appeared from the break room. We've got a problem. 2 black SUVs just pulled into the parking lot. Federal plates. Already? Reeves checked his watch. They weren't supposed to be here until morning. Kane pushed harder than we thought, Ethan said. He looked at Vanessa. He knows about the senator. He's moving fast to contain this before it spreads. What do? We follow the plan. Stay calm. Let them think they're in control. The front door opened and 3 men walked in. They wore dark suits and had the bearing of federal agents, but Ethan recognized the type. These weren't FBI. These were intelligence community. Probably DIA, maybe CIA. The kind of agents who specialized in making problems disappear. The lead agent pulled out credentials. I'm Agent Brooks, Defense Intelligence Agency. We're here for Vanessa Hale and Ethan Cole. Reeves stepped forward. On what authority? National Security Investigation. Ms. Hale is wanted for questioning regarding the theft of classified technology. Mr. Cole is wanted as a material witness. Brooks's voice was flat, bureaucratic. We have authorization from the Justice Department to take them into federal custody. I'll need to see that authorization. Brooks produced a document. Reeves took it, read it carefully, then looked at Rachel. She read it too, and Ethan saw her expression tighten. "It's legitimate," she said quietly. "DOJ seal, proper signatures. They have jurisdiction." "Then I guess we're going," Ethan said. Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Don't. Once we're in their custody, we don't have a choice." He looked at Brooks. "But we're not going anywhere until we see your supervisor, someone above field agent level. We're not getting in a car with you until we verify chain of command." Brooks' expression didn't change. "That's not how this works." "That's exactly how this works. You're taking 2 civilians into federal custody on national security grounds. Protocol requires supervisor verification for out-of-jurisdiction extractions." Ethan kept his voice level. "Unless you're operating outside protocol." The silence stretched out. Brooks and his partners exchanged glances. "Wait here," Brooks said finally. He stepped outside and made a phone call. "You bought us maybe 5 minutes," Rachel said. "What's the play?" "Harmon. He needs to know they moved faster than expected." Ethan pulled out his phone. But before he could dial, every phone in the station started ringing at once. The desk phone, Rachel's cell, Reeves's cell, even the fax machine in the back office. Reeves picked up the desk phone. "Sheriff's office." He listened for a moment, his face going pale. "Yes, Senator, he's right here." He handed the phone to Ethan. "Senator?" "Ethan, I'm calling every law enforcement office in Colorado right now. Kane's people are moving to grab you before I can get oversight in place." Harmon's voice was tight with controlled anger. "I'm invoking Senate Intelligence Committee authority under Title 50. As of this moment, you and Ms. Hale are protected witnesses in a federal investigation. Nobody moves you without my direct approval. Brooks has DOJ authorization." "I'm countermanding it. I'm sending you an official letter right now via email. Have the sheriff print it and show it to Brooks. Tell him if he touches either of you, he's interfering with the Senate investigation, and I will personally destroy his career." Ethan looked at Reeves. "Check your email. Senator Harmon's sending documentation." Reeves moved to the computer. 30 seconds later, the printer started spitting out pages. He grabbed them and read quickly. "Son of a bitch, it's real. Senate Intelligence Committee Protection Order, signed by Harmon and 3 other committee members." He looked at Ethan. "You've got some serious friends." "Used to, before I disappeared." Ethan took the documents. "Let's see if Brooks respects Senate authority." They walked outside together. Brooks was still on the phone, but he ended the call when he saw them approaching. "We're ready to transport," Brooks said. "No, you're not." Ethan handed him the documents. "As of 20 minutes ago, Ms. Hale and I are protected witnesses in a Senate Intelligence Committee investigation. You don't have authority to move us." Brooks read the documents. His jaw tightened. "This is irregular. So is using DOJ authorization to extract witnesses in an ongoing intelligence investigation without proper oversight." Ethan kept his voice calm. "You can call your supervisor. They'll confirm. Or you can leave now and save yourself the paperwork." Brooks stared at him for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made another call. This one was brief. When he hung up, his expression was carved from stone. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "People who interfere with national security operations don't usually live to regret it." "That sounds like a threat, Agent Brooks." "It's a statement of fact." Brooks looked at Vanessa. "Ms. Hale, when this protection order expires, we'll be back. And next time, there won't be Senate oversight to hide behind." He turned and walked back to his SUV. The other agents followed. 30 seconds later, they were gone. Reeves let out a breath. "Well, that was terrifying." "It's not over," Ethan said. "That was Kane testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push before someone pushes back. Now he knows the Senate's involved. Is that good or bad? Depends on how desperate he is." They went back inside. Vanessa was shaking, adrenaline finally catching up to her. Rachel guided her to a chair and brought her water. "How long does Senate protection last?" Vanessa asked. "As long as Harmon can justify it to the committee. Maybe 48 hours. Maybe less if Kane can produce evidence that makes us look like the criminals." Ethan sat down across from her. "Which means we have 2 days to build a case strong enough that Kane can't suppress it. Rebecca's evidence won't be enough by itself. Kane will claim it's fabricated or taken out of context. We need something ironclad, something that proves intent beyond any reasonable doubt. Like what? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, like Cain himself, on record, admitting what he's done. You want to get a confession? I want to force him into a position where he has to choose between admitting the truth or committing perjury in front of Senate oversight. He looked at her. Your AI system, Aegis, can it be demonstrated, shown to work in real time? Yes, but it would require access to the secure servers. Listen, what if I told you I know someone who can get us that access? Someone outside Cain's network. Vanessa's eyes widened. Who? Someone I saved during the Kazakhstan operation. Someone who owes me a favor big enough that they'll risk their career to help. He pulled out his phone again. But it's risky. If Cain finds out we're accessing AEGIS servers, he'll know we're planning something. Do we have another option? Not really. Then make the call. Ethan dialed. It rang twice. This is Major General Patricia Morrison. General, this is Ethan Cole. I need to call in my marker. There was a long pause. I was wondering if you'd ever use it. I didn't want to, but circumstances changed. I heard. Cain's been making noise about a rogue contractor and stolen technology. Some people are buying it. It's a lie. The contractor isn't rogue and the technology wasn't stolen. Cain's running an illegal operation to seize control of military AI systems. You have proof? Enough to raise questions. Not enough to stop him without help. Another pause. What do you need? Access to AEGIS servers. Just a demonstration. Enough to show Senate investigators that the system works and that Ms. Hale's safeguards are legitimate. That's a tall order. Those servers are locked down tight. But you're deputy commander of Cybercom. If anyone can authorize temporary access for oversight purposes, it's you. And if Cain finds out, then you tell him the truth. The Senate Intelligence Committee requested a demonstration as part of their investigation. You're just following orders. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. You saved my life in Kazakhstan. I remember. Fine. I'll authorize a 30-minute access window, tomorrow at 1400 hours. That's all I can give you without raising red flags. That's all we need. Ethan, be careful. Cain doesn't lose gracefully. I know. She hung up. Ethan looked at Vanessa. We've got 24 hours to prepare. After that, we demonstrate AEGIS for the Senate committee and force Cain to respond. If he tries to stop the demonstration, it proves he's hiding something. If he doesn't stop it, the committee sees exactly what he's been trying to steal. And then? And then he either surrenders or he escalates. Either way, we'll know. The rest of the night passed in tense preparation. Rebecca Park arrived from New York on a red-eye flight, carrying encrypted hard drives with evidence of Cain's operation. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Vanessa, she said when they brought her into the conference room. Thank God you're alive. Barely. Vanessa hugged her. Did you bring everything? Everything I could carry. Financial records, communications, meeting logs. Enough to prove Cain's been working on this for at least 18 months. Rebecca set the drives on the table. But I also found something else. Something worse. What? Cain's not just trying to steal AEGIS. He's been building his own version, a parallel development program funded through black budget allocations. He's already got a prototype. The room went silent. How far along, Wes? Ethan asked. Maybe 60% functional, without Vanessa's safeguards, obviously. But if he gets his hands on the full AEGIS code, he can integrate it into his version and have a weaponized AI system operational within weeks. Vanessa's face went pale. He's been planning this since the beginning. Yes. Every meeting, every request for technical specifications, every security review, he was gathering information to build his own copy. Rebecca pulled out a tablet and showed them schematics. Look, this is his prototype. It's crude, but it works. And if he gets AEGIS, he won't need congressional approval or Defense Department oversight. He can deploy it through classified operations. Ethan studied the schematics. Where's the prototype now? Facility in Nevada. Off books. Officially, it doesn't exist. Can we prove it exists? I have satellite photos, financial transfers, personnel assignments. It's all there. Then that's what we show the Senate committee. Not just that Kane tried to steal Aegis, but that he's been building an unsanctioned weapons program using taxpayer money and classified resources. Ethan looked at Vanessa. That's the kind of scandal that brings down entire agencies. It's also the kind of scandal that gets people killed, Rebecca said quietly. I know, but we're past the point of playing it safe. Dawn broke gray and cold over Carver Falls. Ethan stood at the window of the sheriff's station, watching the sun rise through heavy clouds. In 12 hours, they'd demonstrate AEGIS for Senate investigators. In 12 hours, they'd either have enough evidence to stop Kane or they'd be dead. Behind him, Vanessa was sleeping on a cot they'd brought in. She looked younger asleep, vulnerable in a way she never allowed when awake. Sophie was the same way. Sometimes Ethan would watch her sleep and marvel at how someone so small could be so fierce when awake. He'd promised Sophie he'd come get her soon. He intended to keep that promise. Coffee? Rachel appeared beside him, holding 2 cups. Thanks. They stood in silence for a moment. You know, Rachel said quietly, when you moved here 5 years ago, I thought you were running from something. Maybe a bad divorce or financial problems. I never guessed it was this. I was running, just not from what you thought. Do you regret it, coming here? Ethan thought about it. The garage, the quiet life. 5 years of oil changes and brake jobs, and Sophie growing up in a small town where the biggest danger was ice on the roads. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. Those 5 years were the best of my life. Even though they're over now, they're not over. This is just a detour. He took a sip of coffee. When this is done, I'm going back to my garage. Back to my daughter. Back to the life I built. You really think you can? I have to, because if I can't, then Kane wins. And I'm not letting that happen. The phone on Rachel's desk rang. She answered it, listened, then handed it to Ethan. It's Senator Harmon. Ethan took the phone. Senator. Ethan, we've got a situation. Kane just filed formal charges against Ms. Hale with the Justice Department. Espionage, theft of classified materials, unauthorized access to defense systems. He's building a legal case to have her arrested regardless of Senate protection. Can he do that? If he can convince a federal judge the charges are legitimate, yes. And he's got enough fabricated evidence that some judges might bite. Harmon's voice was grim. I can slow him down, but I can't stop him completely. You need to move up your timeline. The demonstration's not until 1400. Make it 1000. I'll have the committee staff ready. But Ethan, understand something. Once you start this demonstration, there's no going back. Kane will know what you're doing, and he'll try to stop you. Whatever resources he has, whatever people he can mobilize, they'll all come down on your position. I understand. Do you have security? Local sheriff's deputies. That won't be enough. It'll have to be. On. Harmon was quiet for a moment. There's something else. Something you should know before you do this. What? I pulled Kane's service record, everything classified. Ethan, he's been running black operations for 17 years. The body count attached to his operations is in the hundreds. People who got in his way, who threatened to expose him, who knew too much. A pause. What I'm saying is, Victor Kane doesn't just win. He burns everything to the ground to make sure he wins. I know. I worked for him, remember? Then you know what's coming. Yeah, I know. Ethan hung up and looked at Rachel. We need to wake everyone up, change of plans. Within an hour, the sheriff's station was transformed into a war room. Rebecca set up her laptops in the conference room, connecting them to secure servers through encrypted channels. Vanessa worked with her, preparing the Aegis demonstration. Reeves coordinated with state police to get additional security. Ethan checked his Glock, then checked it again. 15 rounds. It still wasn't enough. At 09:45, the Senate committee staff connected via secure video conference. 5 faces appeared on the screen. Investigators, lawyers, technical experts. Senator Harmon was there too, sitting in what looked like his office in Washington. Ms. Hale, Harmon said, are you ready to proceed? Vanessa glanced at Ethan. He nodded. Yes, Senator, I'm ready. Then begin. Vanessa's fingers moved across the keyboard. Lines of code scrolled across multiple screens. Rebecca monitored secondary systems, watching for any signs of interference. Aegis is a military decision support system built on advanced AI architecture, Vanessa explained. It processes tactical data in real time and provides strategic recommendations. The system you're about to see is the fully functional version, including all safeguards and ethical constraints I designed into the original framework. She entered a command. On the main screen, a simulation loaded. It showed a battlefield scenario: troops, vehicles, air support, enemy positions. All theoretical, all generated by Aegis. Watch, Vanessa said. The simulation ran. Aegis analyzed the battlefield, processed thousands of variables, and began issuing commands. Troop movements, airstrikes, artillery coordinates, everything coordinated within human precision. The Senate investigators leaned forward, watching intently. Now watch what happens when I remove the safeguards, Vanessa said. She entered another command. The simulation reset. This time, when Aegis ran the scenario, the results were different. More aggressive, more lethal. Civilian casualties jumped from 0 to dozens. Collateral damage increased by 300%. This is what Aegis becomes without ethical constraints, Vanessa said quietly. An efficient killing machine with no moral compass. One of the investigators spoke up. Ms. Hale, can you prove the system is the same one Mr. Kane has been trying to acquire? Yes. She pulled up documentation, design specifications. She pulled. Development timelines. These are the original military contracts. And here, she pulled up more files, are communications between my company and DIA officials over the past 18 months. You can see Kane's team requesting increasingly detailed technical specifications under the guise of security reviews. Rebecca added more evidence. And these are financial records showing unauthorized transfers from black budget accounts to private contractors. The same contractors who attacked Ms. Hale last night. The evidence mounted, document after document, email after email, a pattern of illegal activity spanning months. Then the power went out. The screens went dark. The conference room plunged into shadow. Emergency lights kicked in, casting everything in dim red. What happened? Harmon's voice came through a laptop running on battery power. Ethan was already moving. Get away from the windows. He pulled Vanessa and Rebecca toward the interior wall. Outside, through the windows, he could see vehicles arriving. Not sheriff's vehicles. Not FBI. Military-style SUVs. At least 6 of them. Rachel, ha! Ethan shouted. She appeared in the doorway. Front and back entrances. Maybe 20 men, all armed. Reeves was on the radio calling for backup, but help was minutes away, and they had seconds. The front door exploded inward. The explosion ripped the front door off its hinges and sent it spinning across the lobby in a shower of splinters and twisted metal. Smoke poured in, thick and acrid, turning the emergency lighting into a red haze. Through it came the first operative, rifle up, moving with the kind of precision that said Special Forces training. Ethan fired twice before the man cleared the threshold. Center mass. The operative went down hard, but his vest caught the rounds. Ethan adjusted, fired once more. Headshot. The man dropped and didn't move. Back office, Ethan shouted. Move now! Rachel was already herding Vanessa and Rebecca toward the rear of the building, while Reeves grabbed a shotgun from the weapons locker. 2 more deputies appeared from the break room, service weapons drawn, faces tight with fear and determination. Another operative came through the smoke. Ethan put him down with 3 rounds. Then another. The Glock's slide locked back. Empty. He dropped the magazine, slapped in his last spare, and kept moving backward. How many rounds you got? Reeves asked, racking the shotgun. 15. You? 8 shells, that's it. Then we make them count. The back door imploded in a spray of wood fragments. Flashbang grenades rolled across the floor. Ethan turned away, closed his eyes. The explosion was deafening even through the protection. His ears rang and his vision swam, but he kept moving, muscle memory taking over. 2 operatives came through the back entrance. Reeves fired the shotgun twice. Both men went down. Rachel fired her service weapon, controlled pairs, covering the hallway that led to the holding cells. "Conference room," Ethan pointed. It was the only interior space with no windows and only one entrance, defensible, barely. "Get everyone inside!" They fell back in stages. Ethan and Reeves covering while the others moved, then Rachel and the deputies covering while Ethan reloaded. It was textbook small unit tactics, and it worked for maybe 30 seconds before the operatives adapted. Rifle fire chewed through the walls like they were paper. Bullets punched through drywall and wooden studs, showering everyone with dust and debris. One deputy went down, clutching his shoulder and screaming. Rachel dragged him into the conference room while Ethan put suppressing fire toward the lobby. They made it inside. Reeves slammed the door and shoved a filing cabinet in front of it. It wouldn't stop bullets, but it might slow them down. "Barricade the door!" Ethan moved to help. "Anything heavy?" They piled furniture against the entrance. Desks, chairs, another filing cabinet. Rebecca and Vanessa helped, their hands shaking but moving fast. The wounded deputy was on the floor, pale and bleeding but conscious. "Rachel, stop the bleeding," Ethan said. "Reeves, you and your other deputy watch that door. Anything comes through, shoot it." "What are you going to do?" Ethan looked at the ceiling. "Buy us time." The sheriff's station was old. Built in the 70s, that meant drop ceilings with acoustic tiles and metal frames. He climbed onto a desk, pushed aside a tile, and pulled himself up into the cramped space above. Pipes, ductwork, electrical conduit, and a path that ran the length of the building. He moved carefully, distributing his weight across the metal framework. The space was dark and filled with insulation and decades of accumulated dust. 20 feet ahead, he could see light coming through gaps in the tiles. The lobby, where the operatives were staging their assault. Voices filtered up through the ceiling, professional radio chatter, coordinates, breach points. These men were coordinating a tactical entry, and they had the building surrounded. Ethan found a position above the lobby and carefully lifted a ceiling tile a fraction of an inch. Through the gap, he could see 6 operatives, all armed with HK-416 rifles, all moving with the confidence of people who knew they had overwhelming force. He pulled the tile back fully. Slow, quiet. Nobody looked up. Ethan aimed down through the opening and fired 4 times in rapid succession. The angle was terrible, and the lighting worse, but at this range it didn't matter much. 2 operatives went down before the others reacted. They scattered, taking cover, rifles swinging up toward the ceiling. Ethan rolled sideways as return fire tore through the acoustic tiles. Bullets punched through the thin material, some hitting pipes and sending steam hissing into the crawlspace. He scrambled along the framework toward the east side of the building, putting distance between himself and the breach point. More tiles exploded as the operatives fired blind into the ceiling. Ethan kept moving. His knee hit a pipe wrong and pain shot up his leg, but he didn't slow down. Behind him, he could hear the operatives shouting orders, adapting to the threat. He reached a position above the armory, the small room where the sheriff kept the department's rifles and body armor. The door was locked, but Ethan could see it through gaps in the ceiling. He dropped down, landing hard on the concrete floor, his bad knee protesting. The armory door had a simple deadbolt. Ethan kicked it once, twice. The frame splintered, and the door swung open. Inside were 4 AR-15 rifles, 2 shotguns, and a wall of body armor vests. He grabbed a rifle, checked the chamber. Loaded. He pulled on a vest, grabbed 2 spare magazines, and moved back into the hallway. Through the building, he could hear the operatives closing in on the conference room. They were being methodical about it, clearing each room, sealing off escape routes. In maybe 2 minutes, they'd reach the door Ethan had barricaded. He needed those 2 minutes. Ethan moved back toward the lobby, staying low, using the smoke and chaos for cover. An operative appeared around the corner. Ethan fired first. The man went down. Another operative returned fire from behind an overturned desk. Ethan put 3 rounds into the desk, and the shooting stopped. "Conference room is breached," someone shouted over the radio chatter. "Multiple targets. Holding position." Ethan's blood went cold. They'd reached the barricade faster than expected. He sprinted back through the building, rifle up, his injured knee screaming with every step. The hallway ahead was filled with smoke and the red glow of emergency lights. 2 operatives were at the conference room door, using a battering ram to break through the barricade. Ethan fired. The rifle's report was deafening in the enclosed space. 1 operative dropped. The other turned and fired back. Rounds sparked off the wall next to Ethan's head. He dropped low, returned fire, and caught the operative in the side. The man fell. The battering ram clanged against the floor. Ethan reached the conference room door and pounded on it. "It's me! Open up!" The barricade shifted. Furniture scraped across the floor. The door opened a crack and Rachel's face appeared, pale and frightened. "Get them out," Ethan said. "There's a maintenance exit through the basement. Storm shelter from when this place was built. You can get to the parking lot. What about you? I'll hold them here, buy you time." "Ethan, go!" He shoved a spare magazine at her. "Get Vanessa and Rebecca somewhere safe. Call Harmon. Tell him everything." Rachel hesitated, then nodded. She disappeared back into the room. Ethan took up position at the end of the hallway. 30 feet of corridor between him and the lobby. Any operative who wanted to reach the conference room had to come through him. He settled the rifle against his shoulder and waited. They came in a rush. 4 operatives moving in pairs, using covering fire and tactical movement. Professional, coordinated. Everything by the book. Ethan shot the first one through the knee. The man went down screaming. His partner tried to drag him to cover and Ethan shot him too. The other pair fell back, recognizing that the corridor was a kill zone. Behind him, he could hear Rachel moving everyone toward the basement. The wounded deputy was being helped along, leaving a trail of blood. Rebecca carried the laptops with all the evidence. Vanessa moved quickly despite the exhaustion and fear. "Grenade!" someone shouted from the lobby. Ethan threw himself sideways as the grenade bounced into the hallway. It wasn't fragmentation. These men wanted prisoners, not bodies, but the flashbang was enough to rattle his brain and fill his vision with white light. He rolled, disoriented, trying to find cover. 2 operatives came through the smoke. Ethan fired blind, the rifle kicking against his shoulder. 1 operative went down. The other kept coming, closing the distance. Ethan tried to bring the rifle around, but the operative was too close, too fast. They collided hard. The operative drove his shoulder into Ethan's chest and slammed him against the wall. Air exploded from Ethan's lungs. The rifle clattered to the floor. The operative's fist caught him in the ribs, then the jaw. Stars exploded across Ethan's vision. He caught the next punch, twisted, drove his elbow into the operative's throat. The man gagged, stumbled back. Ethan kicked his knee, heard something crack. The operative went down and Ethan grabbed the dropped rifle. More operatives were coming. Too many. Ethan fired until the magazine ran dry, then used the rifle as a club, swinging it like a bat. Metal connected with bone. Someone screamed. Someone else grabbed him from behind. Ethan threw his head back, felt it connect with a nose. The grip loosened. He spun, lashed out with a kick, caught someone in the chest. But there were too many hands now, too many bodies. They drove him to the ground, pinning him. A boot connected with his ribs. Once, twice, pain exploded through his chest. Someone wrenched his arms behind his back, zip-tied his wrists tight enough to cut off circulation. "Package secured," a voice said into a radio. "Target is contained." Ethan tasted blood. His vision swam. Through the haze, he could see the hallway behind him. The door to the basement was closed. No sign of Rachel or the others. They'd made it. That was something. The operatives hauled him to his feet. Everything hurt. His knee was on fire. His ribs felt broken, and blood ran from a cut somewhere on his scalp. "Where's the woman?" The operative in charge stepped forward. He was older than the others, maybe 40, with the dead eyes of someone who'd done this kind of work for too long. "Where's Vanessa Hale?" Ethan spat blood. "Gone." "Where?" "Hell if I know. I was too busy shooting your friends." The operative hit him. Not a wild swing, but a precise strike to the solar plexus that drove all the air from Ethan's lungs and left him gasping. "Let's try that again. Where's Vanessa Hale?" Ethan couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The world was spinning and gray at the edges. "Search the building," the operative ordered. "Find her." They spread out. Ethan heard doors being kicked in, furniture being overturned, systematic destruction. Minutes passed. Maybe 5, maybe 10. Time was strange when you couldn't breathe properly and everything hurt. "Building's clear, someone reported. No sign of Hale or the others. The operative grabbed Ethan by the hair and forced his head up. "Last chance, where'd they go?" "I told you. I don't know." Another punch, this one to the kidneys. Ethan's vision went white. Basement exit, someone called out. Fresh blood trail. They went out through the storm shelter. Track them, the operative ordered. I want Hale found within the hour. They dragged Ethan outside. The morning sun was painfully bright after the red emergency lights. The parking lot was full of black SUVs and armed men, at least 20 operatives, all kitted out in tactical gear that looked military but wasn't. Private contractors. The expensive kind. They threw Ethan into the back of an SUV. His head bounced off the floor, and fresh pain lanced through his skull. The door slammed shut. Through the tinted windows he could see the sheriff's station. Smoke poured from the shattered windows. The front wall was riddled with bullet holes. 5 years of quiet life, all of it burning. The SUV door opened again, and someone climbed in. Ethan recognized him immediately, even through the haze of pain and concussion. Victor Kane. He looked exactly the same as he had 5 years ago. Lean, well-dressed, with silver hair, and the kind of face that could smile at a fundraiser or order executions with equal ease. He was wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. "Hello, Phantom," Kane said quietly. "It's been a long time." Ethan said nothing. "I have to admit I'm impressed. 5 years and I never knew you were here. You covered your tracks well." Kane settled into the seat across from him. "But you should have stayed hidden. Should have kept your head down and let the world move on without you. You sent men after my daughter. I sent men to your garage. Your daughter was collateral, an unfortunate complication." Kane's expression didn't change. "But since you forced me to deviate from the plan, yes, I've had to account for all variables, including her." The rage that filled Ethan's chest was cold and absolute. "If you've touched her, she's fine for now. My people picked her up 20 minutes ago from Mrs. Chen's house. She's being held at a secure location along with her teacher. Neither has been harmed." "You son of a—" "Careful." Kane's voice got harder. "Your daughter's safety depends entirely on your cooperation. Right now, she's an asset, a way to ensure you do what I need. But the moment you stop being useful, she becomes a liability. And I don't keep liabilities." Ethan forced himself to breathe, to think past the fury. "What do you want?" "The same thing I've always wanted. Vanessa Hale and her technology. You're going to help me find her. She's gone. Your men said so themselves." "She can't have gotten far. Injured, exhausted, running on adrenaline. She'll make mistakes." Kane pulled out a tablet and showed Ethan a map. Red dots marked positions around Carver Falls. "I have teams covering every road out of town, roadblocks at the county line, helicopter surveillance. She's trapped in a 10-mile radius, and that radius is shrinking. The Senate knows what you're doing. Senator Harmon has evidence. You can't cover this up." "Can I?" Kane smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. By the time Harmon finishes navigating committee bureaucracy and filing oversight requests, this will be over. Vanessa Hale will be in custody, her technology will be secured, and you'll be dead. Another casualty of a terrorist attack that I heroically tried to prevent. Nobody will believe that. They'll believe what I tell them to believe. I've been managing narratives for 17 years, Ethan. I'm very good at it. Kane leaned forward. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me where Vanessa is most likely to run, what resources she has, who she might contact, and in exchange, I'll make sure your daughter lives through this. And if I don't, then Sophie Cole, age 8, becomes an orphan, and not the kind who gets adopted by a nice family. The kind who disappears into a system so broken that nobody even notices when children stop existing. Kane's voice was utterly flat. I won't enjoy it, but I won't lose sleep over it either. The SUV fell silent except for the idling engine. Ethan looked at Kane. Really looked at him. The man who'd commanded black operations for nearly 2 decades, who'd ordered killings on 5 continents, who'd built an empire on classified budgets and deniable actions. And Ethan made a decision. Vanessa has a contingency plan, he said slowly. Safe houses across 3 states. Money, weapons, documents. She set it up years ago when she first started developing Aegis. Where? I don't know all of them, but she mentioned one. An old mining facility outside of Boulder, abandoned since the 80s. She owns it through a shell company. Kane studied his face. You're lying. I'm giving you what I know. You want more, you'll have to ask her yourself. Mining facility. Boulder. Kane pulled up the map on his tablet, zoomed in. There are dozens of abandoned mines in that area. Then you'd better start searching. Kane made a phone call. Redirect teams to Boulder, focus on abandoned industrial sites, mining operations, warehouses, anything that could serve as a safe house. He hung up and looked at Ethan. If you're lying to me, you'll kill my daughter. I heard you the first time. Good. Kane stood up. You're coming with us. If we find Vanessa where you said Sophie lives, if we don't, she doesn't. Simple mathematics. They pulled Ethan from the SUV and shoved him into another vehicle. This one already had 2 other prisoners, Rachel and Sheriff Reeves. Both zip-tied, both bleeding from various injuries. Rachel's left eye was swelling shut, and Reeves had a cut above his eyebrow that was still leaking blood. You okay? Ethan asked. Define okay, Rachel muttered. They grabbed us half a mile from the station, had the roads blocked. Vanessa and Rebecca. Got away. Last I saw, they were heading toward the woods east of town. She looked at Ethan. What did you tell Kane? Enough to buy time. Time for what? To figure out how to get Sophie back and kill everyone in this convoy. Reeves made a sound that might have been a laugh. With zip-tied hands and 3 broken ribs? I'm open to suggestions if you have better ideas. The SUV started moving. Through the window, Ethan watched Carver Falls disappear behind them. His town. His quiet life. Everything he'd built for Sophie. He'd lied to Kane about the mining facility. There was no safe house in Boulder. But Vanessa was smart. She'd figure out she was being hunted, and she'd go to ground somewhere Kane wouldn't think to look. Somewhere obvious enough that people would miss her, but remote enough to stay hidden. The question was how long before Kane realized he'd been played, and what he'd do to Sophie when he figured it out. They drove for 40 minutes. The landscape shifted from small-town streets to mountain highways to dirt roads that climbed into the foothills. The SUVs moved in convoy formation, 6 vehicles spread out with tactical spacing, professional, coordinated, everything Kane had always done. Ethan's hands were numb from the zip ties. His ribs sent sharp pains through his chest with every breath. His knee throbbed with a deep ache that suggested torn ligaments, but his mind was clear. Calculating, planning. Rachel was watching him. Whatever you're thinking, don't. I'm not thinking anything. Liar. I can see it on your face. You're planning something stupid. Stupid's relative. Ethan, they have your daughter. You try something, they'll kill her. Oops. They're going to kill her anyway. Kane doesn't leave witnesses. He shifted position, testing the zip ties. He's just keeping us alive until he gets what he wants. The moment Vanessa's in custody, we're all dead. Reeves leaned forward slightly. So what's the play? Create chaos, force Kane to react instead of act, make him vulnerable. How? Still working on that part. The convoy slowed. Through the window, Ethan could see they were approaching some kind of industrial facility. Old concrete buildings, rusted metal, chain-link fence with holes torn by time and weather. An abandoned mining operation just like he'd described. The SUVs pulled through the gate and spread out across the property. Operatives exited vehicles, weapons ready, securing the perimeter. Kane's voice came over their radios, coordinating the search. They pulled Ethan, Rachel, and Reeves from the SUV and made them kneel in the dirt. The operative in charge, the one with the dead eyes, stood guard while the others swept the buildings. Ethan Cole. A voice crackled over a radio. Kane. I'm standing in an abandoned mining facility that hasn't seen human activity in 30 years. Would you care to explain? Ethan said nothing. Search every building, Kane ordered. And someone bring Cole to me, Chet. The dead-eyed operative grabbed Ethan by the shoulder and hauled him upright. They marched him across the compound to the largest building. Inside, Kane stood in what had once been an office. Dust covered everything. Broken windows let in cold mountain air. There's nothing here, Kane said flatly. Then she must have gone somewhere else. Kane pulled out a handgun, a Sig Sauer P226. He chambered around and pressed the muzzle against Ethan's forehead. Last chance, where is she? I told you, The truth. Kane's voice finally showed emotion, anger, frustration. You've been playing me since the moment my men grabbed you. You sent me on a wild goose chase while Vanessa slips through my net. Where is she? Ethan met Kane's eyes. You really want to know? Yes. She's probably halfway to Denver by now. Rebecca Park has contacts in the federal building. Lawyers, investigators, people who can get her in front of the right officials before you can intercept her. Ethan smiled without humor. Or maybe she's at a news station. CNN, maybe. Ready to go on camera and explain how a Defense Intelligence Agency commander is running illegal operations to steal military technology. Kane's finger tightened on the trigger. You're bluffing. Bomb. Maybe. But are you willing to bet your career on it? The silence stretched out. Kane's jaw worked. The gun didn't move. Then Kane's radio crackled. Sir, we have a situation. State police are converging on the facility. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south. Kane lowered the gun. How many? At least 10. Maybe more. Senator Harmon, Ethan said. He must have tracked your convoy. You've been moving resources around all morning. Someone noticed. Si saw it. Kane's expression went cold. Pack it up. All teams return to vehicles. We're moving out. What about Cole? Bring him. And the others. They dragged Ethan back outside. The compound was already being evacuated, operatives moving fast, loading equipment, erasing evidence. The convoy formed up again, engines running. But something was wrong. Ethan heard it first, a distant sound getting closer. Helicopter rotors. Everyone looked up. 3 helicopters appeared over the ridgeline. Not military. Not Kane's. These were marked with state police insignia and news station logos. Media, someone said. They brought the media. Kane's face went white. The media meant cameras. Cameras meant witnesses. Witnesses meant everything happening here would be documented, broadcast, impossible to suppress. Move, Kane shouted. Everyone out now. The convoy started rolling, but the state police were blocking the access road. The helicopters were overhead, cameras recording everything. And through the trees, Ethan could see more vehicles arriving. Federal vehicles. FBI markings. The net had closed. Not around Vanessa. Around Kane. An amplified voice boomed across the compound. This is the FBI. All personnel are ordered to stand down and surrender your weapons immediately. This facility is now under federal jurisdiction. The operatives looked at each other, at Kane, at the helicopters overhead recording everything. Slowly, weapons were lowered. Kane's empire was crumbling in real time, and everyone could see it happening. The dead-eyed operative cut Ethan's zip ties. Boss? Kane didn't answer. He was staring at the FBI vehicles, at the cameras, at the systematic destruction of 17 years of careful control. It's over, Ethan said quietly. You played the game perfectly for a long time, but you made one mistake. You threatened a child, my child. And that's the kind of mistake people don't forgive. Kane turned to look at him. For the first time, Ethan saw something in those cold eyes, fear. You called them, Kane said. Somehow, you called them. Not me, Ethan nodded toward the helicopters. But I'm guessing Vanessa did. Turns out billionaire CEOs have friends in interesting places. Friends who can mobilize resources fast when they know one of their own is being hunted. Federal agents were spreading across the compound now, weapons drawn, badges displayed. Everything by the book and impossible to suppress. Victor Kane, an agent called out. You're under arrest for conspiracy, unauthorized military operations, and attempted kidnapping of a federal witness. Kane stood very still. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. The operatives were being rounded up, zip-tied, read their rights. Rachel and Reeves were freed and immediately surrounded by concerned FBI agents checking injuries. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. The adrenaline was wearing off and everything hurt. His vision swam. His legs felt weak. Ethan! Rachel was suddenly there supporting him. Medical's coming. Just hold on. Sophie, he managed. Kane said they have Sophie. Already handled. FBI found her 30 minutes ago. She's safe. Mrs. Chen, too. Rachel's voice broke slightly. It's over. You did it. Vanessa? Federal building in Denver, giving testimony right now. Senator Harmon's there. Half the Senate Intelligence Committee. This is going to be the biggest scandal in a decade. Ethan closed his eyes. The pain was overwhelming, but underneath it was something else. Relief. Pure, absolute relief. Sophie was safe. Vanessa was safe. Kane was finished. They'd won. But the cost was written across every building in Carver Falls. Written in the bodies of operatives who'd just been following orders. Written in the face of the mechanic who'd tried so hard to leave violence behind. Is it worth it? Rachel asked quietly. All of this. Was it worth it? Ethan thought about Sophie. About the world she'd grow up in. A world where people like Kane faced consequences instead of operating with impunity. Yeah, he said. It was worth it. Paramedics arrived. They loaded him onto a stretcher, started an IV, began treating his injuries. As they carried him toward the waiting ambulance, Ethan caught sight of Kane being led away in handcuffs. Their eyes met one final time across the compound. Kane said nothing. But the message was clear. This isn't over. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Kane had contingencies, lawyers, political connections that would let him slip away eventually. Maybe in 5 years or 10, he'd find a way to come back. But not today. Today, the good guys had won. And sometimes that had to be enough. The ambulance doors closed. The siren started. And Ethan let himself sink into the pain and exhaustion, knowing that for the first time in 5 years, he could rest without looking over his shoulder. The game was over. The quiet life he'd built was shattered. But his daughter was safe, and that was the only thing that really mattered. Everything else he could rebuild. The hospital room in Denver smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Ethan woke to the steady beep of monitors and pain that felt like it had taken up permanent residence in his chest. His ribs were wrapped tight, his knee was immobilized in a brace, and someone had stitched up the cut on his scalp while he was unconscious. Every breath hurt. Every movement hurt. Even thinking about moving hurt. But Sophie was sitting in the chair beside his bed, curled up under a blanket, asleep. That made everything hurt a little less. Ethan watched her breathe. In and out. Peaceful. Safe. Her face was relaxed in sleep, one hand tucked under her cheek. She was wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago, rumpled and grass-stained, but she was here. She was alive. The door opened quietly and a nurse stepped in. She saw Ethan was awake and smiled. Mr. Cole, welcome back. How's the pain? Manageable. That's the morphine talking. You've got 3 cracked ribs, a torn meniscus, and a concussion. You should feel terrible. I do, but I've felt worse. The nurse checked his vitals, adjusted his IV, made notes on a tablet. Your daughter hasn't left that chair in 18 hours. We tried to get her to sleep in a proper bed, but she refused. Said she needed to be here when you woke up. That sounds like her. FBI agents are outside. They want to talk to you when you're ready. And there's a woman who's been calling every hour asking about your condition. Vanessa Hale? Tell the agents I'll talk in an hour, and tell Ms. Hale I'm fine. I'll pass that along. The nurse paused at the door. The news is calling you a hero. Says you stopped a major conspiracy. Saved lives. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mechanic who got caught in something bigger than himself. Well, your daughter thinks you're a hero. That's probably what counts. That's it. She left. The room fell silent again, except for the monitors and Sophie's quiet breathing. Ethan must have drifted off because the next time he opened his eyes, Sophie was awake and staring at him with red-rimmed eyes. Daddy? Hey, sweetheart. She launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his chest. Pain exploded through his broken ribs, but Ethan didn't make a sound. He just held her, one hand stroking her hair, letting her cry into his hospital gown. I was so scared, she sobbed. The men came and they took me and Mrs. Chen and they put us in a van and I thought, I know, but you're safe now. It's over. They said you were dead. They said their boss was going to make sure you never came back. Whoa. They lied. I'm right here. Sophie pulled back, wiping her eyes. Did you really fight all those bad men? Some of them. Mrs. Chen said you saved everyone. She said you were a soldier before you were a mechanic. A long time ago. Why didn't you tell me? It was the question Ethan had been dreading. He looked at his daughter's face, saw the confusion and hurt there, and knew he owed her the truth. Because I wanted you to have a normal life. I didn't want you growing up knowing your dad used to hurt people for a living. I wanted you to think of me as just a mechanic, someone boring and safe. But you're not boring. Sophie struggled for words. You're like a superhero. I'm not a superhero, baby. Heroes don't have to lie to their kids about who they are. But you protected people. You stopped bad guys. Yeah, I did. But I also did things I'm not proud of. Things that keep me up at night sometimes. Ethan touched her face gently. The person I was before you were born, he wasn't a good person. He was just good at his job. And his job was ugly. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Are you still that person? No. I changed when your mom died. I looked at you, this tiny baby who needed me, and I realized I didn't want to be that person anymore. I wanted to be someone you could be proud of. I am proud of you. Even now? After everything? Especially now. You saved people, Daddy. You saved me. Ethan pulled her close again, ignoring the pain. I love you, Sophie, more than anything in this world. That's why I fought so hard. That's why I couldn't let them win. I love you too, and they stayed like that until a soft knock interrupted them. The door opened and Vanessa stepped in. She looked different than she had 3 days ago. The blood was gone, the torn clothes replaced by a simple sweater and jeans. But her eyes held the same sharp intelligence, the same determination. Sorry to interrupt, she said quietly. But the FBI said you were awake, and I needed to see for myself. Sophie pulled away from Ethan, studying Vanessa with open curiosity. Are you the lady my dad saved? I am. Your father's very brave. I know. Vanessa smiled, but it was fragile. Do you mind if I talk to him for a few minutes? Sophie looked at Ethan. He nodded. Go get something from the cafeteria. My wallet's in that bag by the window. Get yourself something good. Can I get a cookie? Get two, seek. Sophie grabbed the wallet and left, closing the door behind her. Vanessa moved to the chair she'd been sitting in and lowered herself carefully, like someone who'd been running on adrenaline for days and was finally feeling the crash. You look terrible, Ethan said. You look worse. Fair enough. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, but weighted with everything that had happened. Kane's in federal custody, Vanessa said finally. They're charging him with conspiracy, unauthorized military operations, attempted kidnapping, obstruction of justice. The list keeps growing. His lawyers are screaming about classified operations and national security, but nobody's listening. What about his network? The people who helped him? FBI's rolling them up one by one. Turns out when the guy at the top falls, everyone underneath scrambles to cut deals. They're giving up names, operations, everything. She paused. Rebecca's testimony helped. She had documentation going back 3 years. Financial records that prove Kane was building his own version of Aegis using diverted funds. The prototype you mentioned? Yeah, they found it at the Nevada facility. It's exactly what I feared. Aegis architecture without any ethical safeguards. If Kane had gotten control of my system and integrated it with his prototype, he could have deployed autonomous weapon systems anywhere in the world. Ethan shifted position, trying to find a way to sit that didn't make his ribs scream. What happens to Aegis now? Defense Department's putting together an independent review board. Senator Harmon's overseeing it personally. They want to make sure the safeguards I built are permanent and can't be removed without triggering system shutdown. Vanessa's expression was complicated. Part of me wishes I'd never built it, never created something with that much potential for harm. But you did build it. And you built it right. With protections, with ethics. That's more than most people would do. Is it enough? Don't know, but it's something. Another silence. Vanessa looked at her hands. I came here to thank you and to apologize. You had a quiet life, a good life, and I destroyed it by crashing through your fence. You didn't destroy anything. Cain did that. You were just trying to survive. Still, your garage is gone. The sheriff's station is a crime scene. Your town's been invaded by federal agents and reporters, all because of me. My garage can be rebuilt. The station can be repaired, and reporters will get bored and leave eventually. Ethan met her eyes. What matters is that my daughter's safe, that Cain's in custody, that your technology didn't end up in the wrong hands. Everything else is just property. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, I'd spend the rest of my life angry about things I can't change. Vanessa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Denver sprawled across the landscape. Tall buildings, busy streets, millions of people living their lives without knowing how close they'd come to having weaponized AI operating without oversight. I remember you now, she said quietly. From Syria. It was 5 years ago, but I remember. You were part of the extraction team. You got me out of that compound when everyone else was following orders to deliver me to Cain. You weren't supposed to remember that. They gave you drugs. Told you it was trauma from the kidnapping. I know what they told me, but I remember your face. The way you looked at me when you said we were getting out. Like you'd already made a decision and nothing was going to change it. She turned from the window. Why did you do it? Risk everything to save someone you didn't know. Ethan thought about it, about that night in Syria, the compound, the moment he'd realized what Cain intended to do. Because it was wrong. Because you were a civilian who'd done nothing except be smart enough to build something dangerous. And because I was tired of following orders that made me feel like a monster. So you threw away your career, your whole life. I traded one life for a better one. Became a father, raised my daughter. That was worth more than any career working for Cain. He paused. Until 3 days ago, I thought I'd gotten away clean. Thought I'd managed to escape without consequences. And now? Now I'm not sure what happens. FBI says they need me for testimony. Harmon wants me in Washington for committee hearings. My face is all over the news. Every part of the life I built is compromised. Vanessa came back to the chair. What if I could help with that? How? My company has significant resources. Security divisions, private investigators, people who specialize in helping witnesses disappear after high-profile cases. I could set you up somewhere new identity, new location, financial security, whatever you need to keep Sophie safe. You want to help me run again? I want to give you options. You saved my life twice. Let me try to return the favor. Wolves. Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd crashed into his world and turned everything upside down. Who'd been hunted and injured and terrified, but never gave up. Who'd built something dangerous and immediately tried to control it. Who was now offering to help him disappear, even though it would cost her money and resources she didn't have to spend. Why? He asked. Why go through all that trouble for someone you barely know? Because you didn't have to help me. You could have handed me over to Cain and probably cut a deal that kept you and Sophie safe. But you didn't. You fought. You risked everything. Her voice got quieter. People like you are rare. The world needs more of you, not fewer. So if I can help keep you in it, I will. The door opened and Sophie came back, carrying 2 cookies and what looked like a hot chocolate. The lady at the cafeteria gave me this for free because she recognized me from the news. She said I'm famous. You're infamous, Ethan corrected. There's a difference. What's the difference? About 6 months of therapy. Sophie climbed back into her chair and started on the first cookie. Vanessa watched her with something complicated in her expression, almost wistful. You have kids? Sophie asked through a mouthful of cookie. No, never had time for a family. My company takes up most of my life. That sounds lonely. It is, sometimes. Oh, you could spend time with us. My dad makes good pancakes, and we watch movies on Friday nights. Vanessa glanced at Ethan. He shrugged. She's not wrong about the pancakes. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure your dad wants a billionaire CEO hanging around reminding him of everything that happened. Why not? You seem nice and you're pretty. My dad thinks so too. I saw him looking at you when we were at the sheriff's station. Ethan's face went hot. Sophie. What? You were looking at her. I saw it. I was making sure she wasn't injured. Uh-huh. Sure, Dad. Vanessa was trying not to smile. Your daughter's very observant. She's 8. She's not supposed to be this observant. I'm almost 9, Sophie corrected. And I know when someone likes someone else. Okay, that's enough cookies for you. You're getting a sugar high. But Sophie just grinned and took another bite, clearly pleased with herself. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, then looked at Ethan. Senator Harmon's office. They want me in Washington tomorrow for closed-door testimony. I should probably go prepare. How long will you be gone? A few days, maybe a week. Depends how deep they want to dig into Aegis and Kane's operations. She stood up. But I'll be back. I have some business to discuss with a mechanic about rebuilding his garage. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. She looked at Sophie. It was nice meeting you. Your father's very lucky to have you. He knows. I tell him all the time. Vanessa left. The room felt somehow emptier without her presence. Sophie was watching Ethan with knowing eyes. You like her. I don't know her well enough to like her. You saved her life. That means you like her. That's not how it works. Mom used to say you only fight for things you care about. You fought really hard for Ms. Hale. That means you care about her. Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Sophie went back to her cookies, satisfied she'd made her point. The next week passed in a blur of FBI interviews, hospital recovery, and endless news coverage. Reporters camped outside the hospital, trying to get interviews. Senator Harmon's committee announced formal hearings. Kane's arrest dominated headlines. The whole country was talking about corruption in the intelligence community and the dangers of military AI. Ethan mostly stayed in his hospital room, recovering and trying to shield Sophie from the worst of it. Rachel visited every day, bringing updates on Carver Falls and the cleanup efforts. Reeves came once, his arm in a sling, looking exhausted but determined. Town council's already talking about rebuilding the station, Reeves said. Got a bunch of contractors volunteering to do the work at cost. Your garage, too. Seems like everyone wants to help. That's good of them. You're a local hero. People want to support you. Reeves shifted uncomfortably. But Ethan, you should know. FBI's been asking questions about your past, about what you did before you moved here. They find anything? Bits and pieces? Nothing concrete. Your name change was legal, your background check for the garage business was clean. But they're digging. Reeves met his eyes. How bad is it? What they might find? Bad enough. I did things I'm not proud of. Hurt people who probably deserved it, but some who didn't. Followed orders that shouldn't have been given. Will you be charged? I don't know. Most of what I did was under classified operations. Technically legal at the time, but ethics and legality don't always match up. Reeves nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I don't care what you did before you moved to Carver Falls. The man I know is a good father and a decent person. That's all that matters to me. Thanks, Tom. After Reeves left, Ethan sat alone thinking about consequences. He'd escaped Kane's network 5 years ago, but he'd always known the past might catch up. Now it had. Now people were asking questions. Now his old life was colliding with his new one in ways that couldn't be controlled. The door opened and 2 FBI agents stepped in. Different from the ones who'd been doing routine interviews. These were older, higher ranking, and they had the serious expressions of people about to deliver bad news. Mr. Cole, I'm Special Agent Morrison. This is Special Agent Chen. We're from the Bureau's National Security Division. What can I do for you? We need to talk about your service record, specifically your time working with Victor Kane. Ethan's stomach tightened. I've already given statements about that. Yes, but those statements were about Kane's recent activities. We're interested in older operations, things that happened when you were actively working for him. Those operations were classified. Many of them have been declassified in the last 72 hours. Senator Harmon's committee has been very aggressive about transparency. Morrison pulled out a file. Kazakhstan, 2020. The operation where you extracted Vanessa Hale. Your after-action report says you encountered hostile forces and were forced to go off mission to ensure civilian safety. That's accurate. But Kane's report says something different. It says you disobeyed direct orders, compromised the operation, and caused the death of 2 team members. Kane's report is a lie. I saved Vanessa's life because Kane intended to kidnap her and use her skills for unauthorized weapons development. The 2 team members who died were killed because they tried to stop me from doing the right thing. The agents exchanged glances. Chen spoke up. You're admitting to killing fellow operatives? I'm admitting to defending myself and an innocent civilian from people who were following illegal orders. That's your position? That's the truth. Morrison closed the file. Mr. Cole, we're not here to arrest you. We're here to understand what happened. Kane's network is unraveling, and every day we find more evidence of unauthorized operations. But we need witnesses, people willing to testify about what really happened on these missions. You want me to testify against Kane's operations? We want you to tell the truth, on record, in front of Congress and federal prosecutors. Help us build a case that ensures Kane never operates again. Ethan looked at both agents. If I do that, I'm admitting to things that might be criminal, things that happened under classified authority but were morally wrong. Possibly, but you'd also be helping to dismantle a corrupt system that's operated without oversight for almost 2 decades. Morrison leaned forward. Morrison leaned. The director personally authorized me to offer you immunity. Full immunity for anything that happened during your service with Kane's unit, in exchange for complete cooperation and testimony.
Wow.
Why would you do that? Because taking down Kane is more important than prosecuting former operatives who were following orders. And because Senator Harmon went to bat for you. Said you were the kind of witness who could break this case wide open. Ethan was quiet for a long time. Immunity meant safety. Meant he could tell the truth without risking prison. Meant Sophie would never have to visit her father behind bars. But it also meant reliving every mission, every operation, every decision that still kept him up at night. I'll need to think about it. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires and you're on your own. The agents left. Ethan sat in the hospital bed, staring at nothing, thinking about choices and consequences and the price of doing the right thing. Sophie came back from the playroom where nurses had been keeping her entertained. Who were those people? FBI agents. What did they want? They want me to help them put bad people in jail. Are you going to? I don't know yet. Sophie climbed onto the bed next to him, careful of his injuries. Mom used to say that when you don't know what to do, you should think about what kind of person you want to be. Smart woman, your mom. She was. So what kind of person do you want to be? Ethan thought about it, about the mechanic he'd tried to be, about the father he was, about the soldier he'd been. I want to be someone you're proud of, he said finally. Someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. Then you already know what to do. She was right. He did know. The next morning, Ethan called Special Agent Morrison. I'll do it. I'll testify. But I have conditions. Name them. Sophie stays out of it. No testimony from her, no interviews, no using her to pressure me. Agreed. And I want protection for Mrs. Chen and Sheriff Reeves. If Kane's network decides to retaliate, I need to know the people who helped me are safe. We can arrange that. One more thing. When this is over, I want help relocating if we need it. New identity, new location. A chance to actually disappear this time. That's doable. Witness protection has resources. Then we have a deal. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Mr. Cole, I want you to understand what you're agreeing to. The testimony will be brutal. Defense lawyers will try to destroy your credibility. They'll bring up every questionable thing you've ever done. They'll paint you as a criminal trying to avoid consequences. I know. And there's no guarantee immunity will protect you from everything. Some operations might fall outside the scope of what we can cover. I know that too. But it's the right thing to do. So I'm doing it. All right. We'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning. Bring your daughter. We'll keep you both in protective custody until the hearings are over. Ethan hung up and looked at Sophie. We're going to Washington. Will Ms. Hale be there? Probably. Good. She should see you being brave. I'm not brave. I'm just tired of running. But Sophie just smiled like she knew better. They discharged Ethan from the hospital that afternoon. His ribs were still wrapped, his knees still braced, but the doctors said he could travel. 2 FBI agents drove them to a safe house in the suburbs, a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and houses that all looked the same. The safe house was small but comfortable. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a backyard with a fence. Sophie picked the bedroom with the window overlooking the backyard. Ethan took the one closest to the front door. Old habits. That night, he lay in bed listening to the house settle, thinking about Washington and testimony and everything that was coming. Thinking about Kane sitting in a cell, probably planning his defense. Thinking about Vanessa, somewhere in the same city, preparing for her own testimony. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard you're testifying. Thank you. It matters. V. Ethan stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Seemed like the right call. How are you holding up? The response came quickly. Tired, scared, but ready. You? Same. Sophie okay? She's good. Asking about you. Tell her I said hello, and that I'm looking forward to those pancakes. Ethan smiled despite everything. I will. Get some sleep. Big days ahead. You too. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Outside, the city hummed with life, millions of people sleeping, working, living. None of them knowing that in a few days, testimony would begin that would shake the intelligence community to its foundation. But Ethan knew. And for the first time in 5 years, he wasn't running from it. He was walking straight into it, eyes open, ready. Whatever came next, he'd face it. For Sophie, for Vanessa, for everyone who trusted him to do the right thing. The quiet life was over. But maybe what came after would be worth it. The Senate hearing room was smaller than Ethan expected. He'd seen these spaces on television, grand chambers with high ceilings and rows of seats for spectators. But this was a closed session, just the Intelligence Committee, a handful of lawyers, and witnesses who would testify about things the public would never hear. Ethan sat in the witness chair, his hand still resting on the Bible they'd used for the oath. His knee throbbed under the brace, and his ribs ached despite the painkillers, but he kept his back straight and his expression calm. Sophie was in a secured room down the hall with 2 FBI agents who'd promised to keep her entertained with movies and snacks. She'd hugged him before he went in, whispered, "Be brave," in his ear, like she was the parent and he was the child. Senator Harmon sat at the center of the committee panel, flanked by 4 other senators whose names Ethan had already forgotten. To his left sat 3 federal prosecutors, tablets open, ready to take notes. To his right was an empty chair where Vanessa would testify after him. Mr. Cole, Harmon began, his voice formal but not unkind. Thank you for agreeing to testify today. Before we begin, I want to clarify for the record that you've been granted immunity for any actions taken while operating under classified authority during your service with Defense Intelligence Agency operations commanded by Victor Kane. This immunity is conditional on your full cooperation and truthful testimony. Do you understand? I do, Ed. Then let's begin. How long did you work for Victor Kane? 3 years, 2018 to 2021. And what was the nature of that work? Ethan took a breath. This was it. The moment where he stopped running from his past and laid it all out. Covert operations, extraction, surveillance, targeted removals. We operated in countries where the United States officially had no military presence. Our missions were deniable. If we were caught, the government would disavow any knowledge. Says. Targeted removal, one of the other senators said. You mean assassinations? Sometimes. Other times, it meant kidnapping someone and bringing them back for interrogation, or eliminating weapons caches, or destabilizing organizations that threatened American interests. Ethan's voice was steady. We did whatever Kane ordered. And Kane's orders came from people higher up the chain who wanted problems solved without congressional oversight. Did you ever question those orders? Ishem. Not at first. I was a soldier. Soldiers follow orders. And Kane was good at making everything seem necessary. He'd show us intelligence briefings, explain why a target needed to be eliminated, make it all sound like we were protecting American lives. Ethan paused. It wasn't until Kazakhstan that I realized how much we'd been manipulated. Bram bo totai. Harmon leaned forward. Tell us about Kazakhstan. So Ethan did. He told them about the mission briefing, how Kane had presented Vanessa Hale as a security risk who needed to be brought in for questioning, how the team had infiltrated the compound where she was working on contract for the Defense Department, how Ethan had discovered the real plan wasn't extraction, but kidnapping, a way for Kane to force Vanessa to work on weapons development outside official channels. I accessed Kane's secure communications, Ethan said, found messages proving he intended to hold Ms. Hale indefinitely, use her skills to build systems he could deploy without oversight. When I confronted him, he told me to follow orders or face consequences. And you chose consequences. I chose to get an innocent woman out of danger. Yes, sir. Even though it meant killing 2 of your own team members. The room went silent. Ethan met Harmon's eyes. They weren't my team anymore. Not when they were following orders to kidnap a civilian. I warned them to stand down. They didn't, so I did what I had to do. One of the prosecutors spoke up. Mr. Cole, you're admitting to killing federal operatives during an authorized mission. I'm admitting to defending myself and an innocent person from people who were committing a crime under the guise of national security. Ikin Kasiwachi. That's a convenient interpretation. It's the truth. And the fact that Ms. Hale is alive and Kane is in custody proves I made the right call. The questioning continued for 3 hours. They pulled apart every operation Ethan had been part of, every decision he'd made, every order he'd followed. Some senators were sympathetic, understanding that soldiers in classified operations often faced impossible choices. Others were hostile, trying to paint him as a rogue agent who'd betrayed his country. Ethan answered every question honestly. The mission in Yemen, where they'd eliminated a weapons dealer who turned out to be a CIA asset. The extraction in Syria that left 12 people dead, some of them civilians. The surveillance operation in Berlin where they'd blackmailed a German official into cooperation. All of it ugly. All of it authorized by Kane. All of it weighing on Ethan's conscience for 5 years. Why didn't you come forward sooner? One senator demanded. If you knew Kane was operating outside the law, why wait 5 years? Because I was scared. Because I had a daughter to protect. Because Kane's network was so deep, I didn't think anyone would believe me. Ethan's voice hardened. And because after what I'd seen, after what I'd done, I didn't trust the system to do the right thing. I still don't, entirely. But Ms. Hale didn't have a choice. She needed help, so I helped. When they finally called a recess, Ethan felt like he'd been interrogated for days. His throat was dry, his head pounding. An aide brought him water, and he drank it gratefully. The door opened, and Vanessa walked in. She was dressed in a dark suit, professional and composed, but her eyes found his immediately. How bad was it? She asked quietly. About what I expected. They're not going easy on anyone. Good. Kane shouldn't get away with anything. She sat in the chair beside him. Sophie okay? She's fine, probably eaten her weight in candy by now. Vanessa smiled, but it faded quickly. I'm testifying next. About Aegis. About Kane's attempts to steal it. About his unauthorized weapons program. You nervous? Terrified. I've given presentations to defense contractors and government officials, but this feels different. This feels like the whole future of AI weapons development is riding on what I say in that room. It probably is. That's not comforting. You'll do fine. Just tell them the truth. Show them why safeguards matter. Make them understand what Kane would have done with Aegis if he'd succeeded. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. When this is over, what are you going to do? Go back to Carver Falls? I don't know. The town's been good about everything, but I'm not sure I can go back to just being a mechanic. Too many people know who I was, what I did. You could work for me. Ethan looked at her. What? Hale Defense Technologies needs people with your expertise, security consulting, training programs for operatives who actually understand ethics and oversight. You could help build systems that prevent another Kane from emerging. Vanessa, I killed people. I'm not exactly qualified to teach ethics. You're exactly qualified. Because you know what happens when ethics are absent. You've lived the consequences. She met his eyes. And because you chose to do the right thing even when it cost you everything. That's the kind of person I want working for me. Before Ethan could respond, they called Vanessa in for her testimony. She squeezed his hand once, then walked into the hearing room with her head high. Ethan sat alone in the hallway, thinking about her offer, about the possibility of a different life, not hiding in a small town pretending the past didn't exist, but actually using his experience to make things better. It was appealing in a way he hadn't expected, scary too, but maybe the best things were. Vanessa's testimony lasted 2 hours. When she emerged, she looked exhausted but satisfied. They're recommending a complete overhaul of oversight for military AI development, independent review boards, congressional approval for deployment, mandatory ethics training for everyone involved. That's good. It's a start. She checked her phone. Rebecca says Kane's lawyers are trying to cut a deal, reduce charges in exchange for information about other classified programs. Will it work? Harmon says no. Says they have enough evidence to prosecute without Kane's cooperation. They want to make an example of him. Over the next 4 weeks, the case against Victor Kane unfolded in classified hearings and sealed court documents. Ethan testified 3 more times, each session pulling apart another piece of Kane's network. Rachel and Sheriff Reeves testified about the attack on Carver Falls. Rebecca Park presented technical evidence about the unauthorized Aegis prototype. Major General Morrison testified about the access codes Kane had used to cover his operations. The evidence was overwhelming. Kane had built an empire on classified budgets and deniable operations, answering to no one, operating with impunity for 17 years. But every empire has cracks, and once investigators started pulling on threads, the whole thing unraveled. Kane's trial was held in a secure federal courthouse with no media access. Ethan attended the sentencing hearing. He wanted to see Kane's face when the judge read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy, unauthorized military operations, attempted kidnapping, obstruction of justice, theft of government resources. The list went on. The judge sentenced Kane to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Kane showed no emotion as the sentence was read. But as they led him from the courtroom, his eyes found Ethan's across the room. For just a moment, they locked gazes. Kane's expression said what his words couldn't. This isn't over. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Kane had contingencies, allies on the outside who would try to finish what he'd started. But right now, today, he was going to prison. And that had to be enough. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa was waiting with Sophie. The little girl ran to Ethan and he caught her, lifting her despite his still healing ribs. Is it done? Sophie asked. Is the bad man going to jail? It's done, sweetheart. He's going away for a long time. Good. Can we go home now? Home. The word hung in the air. Ethan looked at Vanessa over Sophie's head. She gave him a small smile, understanding everything the question contained. Yeah, Ethan said. We can go home. They flew back to Colorado 3 days later. Carver Falls looked different than Ethan remembered. The sheriff's station had been rebuilt. The new structure, modern and secure with better lighting and reinforced walls. His garage was still a construction site, but the frame was up, and locals were already asking when he'd reopen. Mrs. Chen hosted a welcome-back dinner that turned into half the town showing up with casseroles and questions and poorly disguised curiosity. People wanted to hear about Washington, about the hearings, about whether it was true that Ethan had saved a billionaire from government assassins. Ethan deflected most of it, focusing on thanking people for their support and promising the garage would be open again soon. Sophie soaked up the attention, telling anyone who would listen about the FBI's safe house and the agents who'd taught her poker. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Sophie was asleep, Ethan sat on the front porch of the small rental house they were staying in. The air was cold and clear, stars visible in a way they never were in cities. This was why he'd moved here. The quiet, the space, the chance to breathe without looking over his shoulder. A car pulled up and Vanessa stepped out. She'd stayed in Denver for business meetings but promised to visit before she flew back to New York. She walked up the porch steps and sat beside him. Nice town. It's home. Or it was. Could be again. Ethan looked at her. You really meant that job offer? I wouldn't have made it if I didn't. It's a big change. New York's not exactly Carver Falls. No, but Hale Defense has offices in Denver, and I'm thinking about relocating the company headquarters anyway. Too many bad memories in New York. She pulled her coat tighter against the cold. I could use someone in Colorado who understands both security and ethics, someone who's seen what happens when oversight fails. What about Sophie? Good schools in Denver, parks, normal life. She could visit here on weekends if she wanted. Vanessa turned to face him. Ethan, I'm not asking you to give up everything again. I'm asking you to consider building something new, something better than just hiding from the past. I don't know if I'm qualified for that. You're more qualified than you think. You made hard choices. You lived with consequences. You know the cost of doing the right thing. She paused. That's rare. Most people in this business only understand orders and results. They don't understand the human price. Ethan thought about Kane's network, about all the operatives who'd followed orders without questioning, about the people who'd died because nobody stopped to ask if the mission was justified, about Vanessa, who'd built something dangerous and immediately tried to control it because she understood responsibility. If I do then, he said slowly, it can't be in the shadows. No classified operations, no deniable actions. Everything transparent and accountable. That's exactly what I'm building. Complete transparency in defense contracting. Ethics oversight on every project. No more programs that operate without congressional knowledge. A lot of people in the industry won't like that. I know. But after what happened with Kane, Congress is demanding it. And I'd rather build the new standard than fight it. She smiled. Besides, having someone like you on staff sends a message. We're serious about doing this right. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. Inside, through the window, Ethan could see Sophie's backpack on the couch, her homework scattered across the table, evidence of a life that was still innocent despite everything that had happened. I need to think about it, Ethan said finally. Talk to Sophie. Make sure this is what's right for her. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. Vanessa left an hour later, promising to stay in touch. Ethan watched her drive away, then went inside and checked on Sophie. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the edge, sleeping hard the way only children could. He sat in the chair by her bed, watching her breathe, thinking about choices and futures and the difference between running away and moving forward. For 5 years he'd been running, building a quiet life, yes, but always looking over his shoulder, always waiting for the past to catch up. Maybe it was time to stop running, time to actually deal with what he'd been instead of hiding from it. The next morning at breakfast, Sophie was unusually quiet. She pushed cereal around her bowl without eating, her expression thoughtful. What's on your mind, kiddo? Ethan asked. Are we staying here, in Carver Falls? Would you want to? Sophie considered it. I like it here, but it feels different now. Like everyone knows stuff about us that they didn't before. Yeah, I know what you mean. Ms. Hale's job offer. Are you going to take it? Ethan blinked. How do you know about that? Sus. I heard you talking last night. You left the window open. Sophie finally looked up. Would we move to Denver? Maybe, if I took the job. Nothing's decided yet. Would I have to change schools? You'd go to a new school, yeah. But we could visit here on weekends. Keep in touch with your friends. Sophie was quiet again, processing. Would Ms. Hale be around if we moved? Probably. She'd be my boss. I like her. She's nice, and she makes you smile. I smile. Not like that. Not like how you smile when she's here. Sophie took a bite of cereal. Mom used to make you smile like that, before she got sick. The observation hit Ethan harder than he expected. He'd been so focused on keeping Sophie safe, on building a stable life, that he'd stopped thinking about anything beyond survival. But Sophie was right. Vanessa made him feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. If we moved, Sophie said carefully, would you be happy? Really happy? Not just okay, safe, quiet, happy, but actually happy? I don't know. Maybe. Then we should do it, because you've been okay, safe, quiet for a long time. And that's good, but it's not the same as happy. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're busy being protective. Fair point. They spent the rest of the day walking around Carver Falls, visiting the garage construction site, stopping by the rebuilt sheriff's station, eating lunch at the diner where everyone wanted to hear more stories. It felt like saying goodbye, even though nothing was decided yet. That evening, Ethan called Vanessa. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. Name them. Sophie comes first, always. If there's travel, I need advance notice. If there's danger, I walk away. She doesn't grow up wondering if her dad's coming home. Agreed. And I need to know this is real. Not just guilt over what happened or some corporate image thing. I need to know you actually want to build something better. Ethan, I've spent 5 years building Aegis with safeguards most people said were unnecessary. I've turned down contracts because the buyers wanted unrestricted access. I've testified against the entire defense industry's standard practices. Her voice was firm. This isn't guilt. This is who I am. And I want people around me who share that vision. Okay then, when do I start? How about January? Gives you time to finish the garage rebuild, get Sophie settled with the idea of moving. We'll find you housing in Denver, get her enrolled in a good school. That works. Ethan, Vanessa's voice softened. Thank you for trusting me, for giving this a chance. Thank you for crashing through my fence. She laughed. Worst and best decision I ever made. They talked for another hour, making plans, discussing logistics, slowly building something that felt less like a job offer and more like a partnership. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt lighter than he had in months. Sophie appeared in the doorway. So we're moving? Looks like it. Good. I already told Mrs. Chen we'd visit every month. She said she'd save my old bedroom for sleepovers. You're taking this surprisingly well. Dad, I'm 8. I've survived assassins and FBI safe houses and watching my father get arrested. Moving to a new city isn't that scary. She climbed onto the couch next to him. Besides, you're happy, really happy. That makes it okay. Bosit. Winter arrived in Colorado with heavy snow and temperatures that dropped below zero. The garage reopened in December, just in time for people to need help with dead batteries and frozen engines. Ethan worked long hours finishing projects, training the 2 mechanics he'd hired to take over when he moved to Denver. Vanessa visited twice, staying at the small bed and breakfast in town, joining Ethan and Sophie for dinners that felt surprisingly natural. Sophie had decided Vanessa was basically family and treated her accordingly, which meant blunt questions about whether she was dating anyone and why she worked so much. I don't have time to date, Vanessa explained over pizza one night. That's dumb, Sophie said. Everyone needs time for important stuff. Work is important. So are people. Right, Dad? Ethan, caught between his daughter and a billionaire CEO, just sighed. I'm staying out of this. Coward, both of them said simultaneously. Christmas came. Ethan and Sophie drove to Denver for dinner at Vanessa's apartment. It was the first real holiday either of them had celebrated in years, and something about being together made it feel less lonely. Sophie fell asleep on the couch after dinner, exhausted from opening presents. Ethan carried her to the guest room while Vanessa cleaned up. She's wonderful, Vanessa said when Ethan came back. You've done an amazing job with her. I've done my best. Some days that's enough. Some days it isn't. That's parenting. That's life. Vanessa handed him coffee. Can I ask you something personal? Sure, Ian. Are you doing this just for Sophie, the job, the move? Are you doing it because you think it's what she needs? Ethan thought about it. At first, maybe. But no, I'm doing it because I want to. Because hiding in a small town was never going to be enough forever. Because you're right. I can use what I learned to build something better. He paused. And because being around you makes me think maybe there's more to life than just surviving. Vanessa set her coffee down carefully. That's good, because I was worried this was one-sided. What's one-sided? This. She gestured between them. Whatever this is. Partnership, friendship, something more. I wasn't sure if you felt it too. I feel it. I'm just not sure what to do about it. We could start with being honest, with not pretending this is just business. And if it gets complicated, then it gets complicated. But I'd rather try and fail than never try at all. Ethan looked at her. This woman who'd crashed into his life and changed everything, who'd been hunted and terrified but never gave up, who was brilliant and driven but also lonely in ways she tried to hide, who made Sophie laugh and challenged Ethan to be better than he thought he could be. "Okay," he said. "Let's try." The kiss was tentative at first, both of them unsure. But then it deepened, and for the first time in 5 years, Ethan felt something beyond survival. He felt alive. When they finally pulled apart, Vanessa was smiling. "So, that's a yes to the job?" That was a yes to a lot of things. They spent the rest of the night talking about the future, about the past, about what they wanted and what scared them. It wasn't perfect or smooth. They disagreed about things, discovered they had different views on parenting and work-life balance. But they listened to each other, adjusted, found middle ground. By the time Ethan and Sophie drove back to Carver Falls the next morning, something had shifted. The future felt less like uncertainty and more like possibility. January arrived cold and clear. Ethan closed the garage for the final time, handed the keys to his 2 mechanics, and loaded everything he and Sophie owned into a moving truck. The whole town came out to say goodbye. Mrs. Chen cried. Sheriff Reeves shook his hand and made him promise to visit. Rachel hugged him tight and whispered, "Be happy," in his ear. The drive to Denver took 3 hours. Sophie slept most of the way, exhausted from goodbyes. Ethan drove in silence, watching the landscape change from small-town rural to city sprawl. Part of him mourned what he was leaving behind, but most of him was ready. Their new house was in a quiet neighborhood with good schools and parks nearby. Vanessa had helped find it, making sure it had space for Sophie's art supplies and a garage where Ethan could work on projects. It felt like home almost immediately. The first day at Hale Defense Technologies was overwhelming. State-of-the-art facility, brilliant people, projects that made Ethan's garage work look like kindergarten crafts. But Vanessa was there, introducing him to everyone, making sure he understood the culture she was building. "We're not perfect," she told the staff at a meeting. "We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to make them honestly, with oversight and accountability. And we're going to learn from them. That's what separates us from places like Kane's operation." Over the next few months, Ethan settled into his new role. He trained security teams on ethical decision-making, reviewed contracts for red flags, consulted on operations that needed someone who understood both tactics and consequences. It was challenging work, but good, the kind of work that let him sleep at night. Sophie thrived in her new school, making friends quickly and joining the art club. She missed Carver Falls sometimes, but the visits every few weeks helped, and having Vanessa around helped too. The Billionaire CEO, who'd been too busy for relationships, somehow made time for family dinners and Sophie's art shows and lazy Sunday mornings. Spring brought warm weather and the kind of optimism that only comes after surviving something terrible. Ethan and Vanessa weren't rushing anything. They were building something slowly, carefully, learning each other's patterns and histories. Sophie approved, which helped. Mrs. Chen approved too, though she made pointed comments about weddings during their monthly visits. One evening in May, Ethan found himself on the back deck of his Denver house, watching Sophie play in the yard with the neighbor's dog. Vanessa sat beside him, her hand in his, both of them quiet. "You know what I've learned?" Ethan said eventually. "What?" "That running from your past doesn't work. You can hide for 5 years or 10 or 20, but eventually you have to face what you were, who you were, what you did. And then what? Then you decide if you're going to let it destroy you or use it to build something better." He looked at her. "I did terrible things for Kane, things that will always be part of my history, but they don't have to define my future." "Is that what we're doing? Building something better?" "Yeah, I think we are." Vanessa leaned her head on his shoulder. "I used to think success meant building the biggest company, making the most money, being the youngest billionaire. But that's not success. This is having people you care about, doing work that matters, coming home to a family that actually wants you there. Even if that family includes a mechanic with a violent past, especially then, because you understand cost in ways most people don't. You know what really matters." They sat in silence while Sophie laughed in the yard, chasing the dog in circles. The sound of pure joy, uncomplicated by fear or trauma. Just a kid being a kid. I'm glad you crashed through my fence, Ethan said quietly. Vanessa smiled. Me too. Best accident I ever had. Summer came. The investigation into Kane's network concluded with 17 more arrests and a complete overhaul of oversight for classified operations. Senator Harmon introduced legislation requiring independent ethics review for all military AI development. The defense industry fought it, but public opinion was against them. Kane's trial had exposed too much. Ethan testified one final time at a public hearing where reporters were allowed. He told his story without shame or apology. What he'd done, why he'd walked away, how he'd tried to build a better life. Some people called him a hero, others called him a criminal. He didn't particularly care about either label. He was just a man who'd made choices. Some good, some terrible. Who'd hurt people and saved people and spent 5 years trying to figure out how to live with all of it. Who'd discovered that redemption wasn't about erasing the past, but about building a future worth the price you'd paid. After the hearing, Ethan took Sophie to get ice cream. They sat in a park, watching people walk by, just being normal. Dad, Sophie said around a mouthful of chocolate. When you were testifying, you looked sad. Are you okay? I'm okay, sweetheart, just thinking about everything that happened. Do you wish it never happened? That Ms. Hale never crashed into the garage? Ethan thought about it. About the violence and fear and everything they'd lost. About Kane and the hearings and the nightmares that still woke him sometimes. But also about Vanessa and the new job and the family they were slowly becoming. No, he said finally, I don't wish it never happened. Because sometimes the storm that destroys your life is also the storm that shows you what really matters. And what matters is you and Vanessa, and doing work that actually helps people instead of just surviving. Sophie nodded seriously. Mom used to say storms make you stronger. Your mom was right about a lot of things. She'd like Ms. Hale. They both ask too many questions and don't let you hide from stuff. Ethan laughed. Yeah, your mom would definitely like her. They finished their ice cream and walked home through the warm evening. Cars passed, people walked their dogs. The world kept turning the way it always did. Somewhere, Victor Kane sat in a prison cell, probably still planning and scheming. Somewhere, operatives who'd worked for him were facing their own reckonings. And somewhere, the next person who thought they could operate without accountability was learning they couldn't. But here, now, Ethan just focused on walking home with his daughter. On the dinner Vanessa was probably cooking. On the simple, ordinary, precious reality of a life built on truth instead of hiding. That night, after Sophie was asleep and Vanessa had gone home to her own place, Ethan sat on the back deck again. The stars were bright despite the city lights. The air was warm. Everything was quiet. He thought about the question Vanessa had asked months ago. Was it worth it? All the pain and fear and loss? Yeah, it was worth it. Because hiding was just surviving. This life with Sophie and Vanessa and meaningful work, this was actually living. And living, Ethan had learned, was always worth fighting for. The mechanic who tried to leave violence behind had discovered something important. You can't escape your past, but you can choose what you build with it. You can let it destroy you, or you can use it as foundation for something better, something honest, something worth the price you paid. Ethan chose the second option, and for the first time in 5 years, he wasn't running anymore. He was home,